Farm General Service Committee meetings. Is there any corrections or changes to them? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Dick, I think you're off.
Aye.
Okay. Ian? Okay, carried. Okay, highway updates, Tim Hunt.
Okay, bear with me here for a second while I promote him. Actually, Connor, can you promote Tim Hunt to the panelist? It's not letting me because I'm not the host anymore.
Yeah, he's got a presentation too, so he's going to need to share a screen. But I think you guys are going to like this presentation. I've been really impressed with Tim so far. He's got some great ideas. So.
Host disabled participant screen sharing. Connor, can you let me share my screen?
You should be good to go now.
Can everybody see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yep.
Great. I wanted to go over first, this is some observations. Ryan and I met with all the employees when I first got here, and this is a presentation that I actually gave to the employees as well. And I wanted to share some of my observations. First disclaimer is there's no personally identifiable information that'll be shared, obviously personnel reasons. Comments have been grouped together in topics related to what I believe the cause of them are, and remedies are only ideas. Sorry, this is jumping around. Let me put it in display mode. Okay. Can you see it or no? Did it go away?
We can see it. You're still on slide 3.
Okay. So comments have been grouped together and remedies are only ideas. They're not promises, but things are going to evolve and change. The biggest observation is the guys are hardworking. They care very much about their community and their jobs. They get a lot of work done. Overall, the road system is in good shape, relatively speaking, and we're not looking to break what works. We're going to take it slow. I've grouped things into these themes: communication, accountability, leadership, teamwork, planning, safety training, and technology. So what I heard, we need better communication. There's a lack of formal communication channel at the highway garage. Micromanagement is a problem. Many people express they feel like they have 3 bosses, too many bosses, get everyone on the same page. Employees haven't been involved in any decision-making, i.e. equipment purchases. What I'm suggesting is that we enforce the chain of command, hold monthly meetings with all employees to get and give feedback. I did share this with all the employees. This is the meeting actually that got everybody quarantined. Look into email and cell phones, monthly supervisor meetings, and start a Lewis County Highway page, Facebook page to the public. And many of you know that I did do that. And the guys created a video of them snow plowing. And we have had 20,000 views of that video. And we've got over 1,000 people who like that Facebook page already. Accountability. What I heard from the employees, everybody needs more accountability. I heard construction pulls its weight, other departments do not, that there's tension between the departments. Building and grounds maintenance by our department is poor, that the storage room and buildings are a mess. Pre-trip inspections for trucks are not getting done. People are not being required to take lunch. Some people are, some are not. So for accountability, I want to develop key performance indicators for all supervisors and managers, which I have. Hold all managers and supervisors accountable to those key performance indicators. Have HR department hold training on proper labor practices. Clearly define areas of responsibility and formal tracking of customer requests and resolutions. Leadership and teamwork. What I heard was be fair and spread work and overtime around, that the leader must have the guys back. There has to be a chain of command. They don't feel like they're a team. They feel like they're divided by department. There's tension between construction and mechanics. The bridge crew is treated as a second-class citizen. They don't like the separate departments. Management, lack of empowerment of the employees. Everyone should be part of the team. Consistency, and employees haven't been involved in equipment purchases. So I want to develop a mission statement with everyone's actions being against that mission statement. Accountability, planning, and communication needs to be improved and involve employees in expenditures, which we've been doing frequently. Technology, what I heard, email for employees, they don't have email, so they're left out when there's countywide emails that are being sent out. Some have cell phones. The road checkers would like what's called Sentry Track check, so they can monitor road temperature and air temperature. Technology is not being utilized, and they asked about, do we have access to the radio frequencies for emergencies? If there's a fire, the dispatchers would like to get plow trucks right out to the scene and be able to make sure the roads are well sanded and well taken care of. So they'd like to be able to monitor that. Little buy-in for the systems that we do use as far as technology. So plan, fully utilize and integrate the tools that we do have. GIS, PubWorks, Munis, BIDIS. Share with and involve employees in the data. Look into who should have emails, develop an email list, look into programming and training on the county radios, potentially budget for smartphones for the employees so that they have access to a camera and they can email us pictures of problems that they see out on the road. That would alleviate the texting and calling and give us instant communication to all of the employees. So that was kind of how it went with all the employees. And so what we've been doing since then is let's look at the assets that we have to manage. Equipment, roads, bridges, culverts, signs, trees, guardrails, all of those. And so what we did is I went through and I started to make sure we had a really good handle on all of those assets. And this right here is a spreadsheet that I'm going to share with you that I started to put together. And this right here has all of the roads that we're responsible for in the county, including beginning mileage, ending mileage, the length of the road, lanes width, and then the average vehicle traffic per day, so that we can start to create a 20-year pavement management plan. The idea is to have the guys go out and help us get an assessment on each road, its condition, what it might need, and start to put this together so that when we pave, we know we're spending our money in the right place at the right time. We also, I've started for all of our snow and ice routes, so we know what town is responsible, how many miles we're responsible for. And now I'd like to start to collect how often are they plowing, what the application rates are, and what we're getting for that money. And then I started to analyze the labor. And this is last year. It's probably not a great tool because last year was a little different. But this is how many man hours were spent working on culverts and how many man hours on paving and trees. And this is all of the snow related activity and how many man hours it takes to do that. And then how many man hours sign shop, and then how many man hours the bridge crew is putting in as well. So starting to analyze what our available man hours are, how we can get the most out of that labor. So that's one of the areas. And then we also did the same thing for bridges. I've spent some time and was able to get from New York State a list of all of the bridges in Lewis County. And these bridges are actually rated right now by condition. And that right there is what New York State would consider our worst bridge, Bryant Bridge over Fish Creek Road. We get 60 cars a day as the average daily traffic over that bridge. And the bridge was built in 1961. So there is actually the LBPI is the higher that number, the more likely we are to get funding to replace that bridge. So these are all of the bridges in Lewis County. So I wanted to make sure we had a handle on those and which ones we're going to get funded or try to get funded and replaced and which ones we need to get maintenance. The bridge crew has put together a really nice maintenance program on taking care of them for the summer. So we're starting to get a good plan for that. And we took a look, we have all of the town bridges too. There's another 40 bridges that are still in the possession of the towns. And I'm starting to work with the town highway superintendents to put in some funding requests to help them get a few of those funded as well. And we also have all of the culverts. And right now in Lewis County, we have 3,498 culverts and box culverts that we're responsible for. So we're going to try to get some condition ratings on those and make sure we're starting to take care of the assets that need it the most. So that's a little bit of how we're proceeding with understanding what we have to take care of and how we're going to take care of it. Let me go back to my slideshow. So I want to kind of go through a little bit of what I'm working on with the equipment and how we're going about it. But the philosophy is we want to make sure that we have good roads at the lowest possible cost and that I can demonstrate that to you, the legislators. So I took the budget and I looked at labor, equipment, and materials, and that's really what we use to make roads. Roads are really simple. It's manpower, equipment, and materials, and we provide good roads with that. So we looked at the total budget of $6.3 million. We're spending $797,000 on repairing and maintaining our equipment, about $2 million on labor, and about $3.4 million on our materials. So ideally, if we want to improve the road system, if we can shrink down the amount of money that we're spending on equipment repairs and shrink down the amount of money we're spending on labor, we can spend more money on the roads. It's really, fixing equipment is inside baseball. Nobody really cares how we make good roads. They just want good roads. And so we want to look at our equipment plan and make sure that we're doing the right thing. And what I've noticed is, and this is really typical, we do this a lot in government. It's easy to fix something. It's hard to make the case that we need to replace it. So we end up keeping equipment way too long and spending way too much money on the repairs of this equipment. And I kind of wanted to show you a little bit about this and how I went about putting this together. So we want to focus on minimizing equipment cost, and we want to focus on life cycle cost, which is the capital equipment cost plus any repair cost divided by the lifespan of that equipment. And we want to focus on maximizing resale value and minimizing repair costs. So we know any piece of equipment down there, and this is a plow truck that we buy for $230,000, is a depreciating asset. And by year 16 or 17, that plow truck is worthless. We're going to sell it for scrap steel. We also know that that is an asset that's going to need repair. And after the first couple of years, it's under warranty. So it doesn't really cost us much other than fuel. And then it's going to need some small things. A hydraulic line will break, or it might need tires or brakes. But then about year 6 or 7, it's going to start to really cost us a lot of money. And these trucks have become so sophisticated with the emissions and all of that stuff that the repairs are very, very expensive. And what we do know is that if we want to minimize our operating cost, that the most efficient use of a piece of equipment is as it's depreciating and the cost of repairs are going up, that we dispose of it right at that point where those two cross. So as the depreciating asset starts to meet the increasing cost of repairs, that's when we want to start to flip that piece of equipment out. So how do we do that? The benefits of it are we're going to help hedge against inflation. We're going to try to leverage the depreciation of the vehicle, and we're going to try to create cost predictability for the county. One budget number every year, very similar to your enterprise program, where that's all you have to worry about. We want to help predict and control the cost of use. So the first thing we need to do is right-size the fleet. And this is really a process that I went through with the employees and asking a lot of questions. How many plow trucks do we need? How many parking lots do we do? How many bridges? What do we need for the bridge crew? What do we need for mowing the roadsides and sweeping the roads in the spring and for construction in the summer? And when we got all through with that list, I took that list and compared it to what we actually had. And here's what we found out. We currently have 68 pieces of equipment at the highway garage. The employees helped identify 18 of them that we can get rid of. We can actually dispose of 18. We think the right size of the fleet is about 50. I'm going to tell you it's probably closer to 52. There might be a couple more pieces we have to add. Out of those 50, 18 of those pieces are pickup trucks, mid-sized to small vehicles that are in the enterprise program, which leaves 32 into a program that we would have to manage, 20 of them in a rotating plan, and 12 of those would be buy and hold because they're odd pieces and they're very hard to dispose of. So I can show you what that looks like a little bit more here in a second. So that's a little bit of the asset planning that we did. And what I've put together here on this equipment plan is, let me get this on the right screen, is what you'll see is I started off with a spreadsheet that you guys get every year that we provide that has all of our equipment on it. Then we did the analysis based on, by function, we need 6 10-wheelers with plows on them to plow the roads. We have 4 mainline plow routes and we need 2 spares. We need 2 pickup trucks for the parking lots and 3 loaders. So we did that. And in the process, we were able to pare that down. And this is the list of pieces that they feel that they can dispose of. Here are the pieces that can all be in the enterprise program. And then I took the rest of them. So we have the 6 plow trucks right here, the 3 loaders that we need, the haul trucks to haul material in the summertime. They're just 10-wheelers, tractor trailer and lowboy, Bobcat skid steer, Volvo road grader, our John Deere dozer. We got a couple rollers, our mowing equipment, some forklifts and a trailer, a shoulder machine. And then these that are highlighted in black, these are the things we bought this year with CHIPS money, and we have to hold on to them for 10 years. So what I did is across the top, I've mapped out the next 20 years. And I've looked at, if we were to lease these for 5 years, on the 6th year, get ready to sell it and replace it on year 6, what that would look like. What would the lease payments look like, and what would the total be for the budget? So if there's $200,000 available, could we lease out all of this equipment and make it work? I have not fully put the amortization together for every piece, but if you take a plow truck valued at $270,000, 3.25% interest right now for a loan period of 5 years, it gives us a payment, and I can start to put those in. Now, what you're going to see is when we get into a rotation, when we sell the plows, they're going to have a very high value. They're going to be worth 50% of the price of the new vehicle, and your lease payments will be cut in half. So then your lease payments start to become closer to $25,000 a year, and you're doing that constantly. And as you do that, there's no need to have 4 mechanics down there, 4 people, a supervisor and 3 mechanics maintaining this equipment. So you can start to reallocate that labor into the construction division and start to do more with the roads. So that's kind of a little bit of the philosophy, a little bit of the goals, and the things I've been working on. And that's all I have. Is there any questions, comments?
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Committee or anybody got any additional questions for Tim?
I just want to say that that was very well put together. with it.
I agree with you, Lisa. That was really nice. Good job.
Anything else? Any other questions for Tim?
Just a note, if you see what Tim's working at there, you guys, I think back in 2014 or 15, the board said, well, we want to start spending $200,000 a year on equipment at the highway. And we've held that number about the same at 200,000, at least for the 4 budgets that I've done. And what Tim is showing is that we can come pretty dang close to staying within that 200,000 and also, maintain a fleet that is in much better shape. So I'm very impressed with the work that Tim has done. And in fact, Tim doesn't know this necessarily yet, but he's going to be helping us with some of our enterprise purchases around budget time as well. So,
But when you take a plow truck, for example, Ryan, the math right now, whether you buy it and hold it for 20 years or you buy it and flip it every 6 or 7, it costs a municipality about $20,000 per year per plow truck. There's no way you can get around it. It is the cost of operating that piece of equipment. And that's what we're really trying to do, is just leverage that and keep it modern so that these guys can work on the roads and not on the equipment.
Harry, I might just add, Tim walked me through some of that last week, and I would agree with a couple of your comments. I mean, he's just really got a lot of good things to think about in there. And I think, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it might take a couple of years of maybe a little over that $200,000 a year that Ryan noted. Might take a couple of years to get over the hump to get into the position he's recommending. But once we do that, it's really going to get us in a better path.
The struggle right now is having equity, because the equipment that we have when we go to sell it isn't worth a lot because it's old and it's just not very valuable. But once we get through that and you're starting to get higher residual value for the equipment, your lease payments can come down and we can get into that $200,000 range. But we've got to, now, one of the reasons I identified those 18 pieces is because that can help us buy down the cost of some of these equipment right now. So by disposing of excess equipment, we can utilize that money and help buy these leases down right out of the gate. Not to mention, when you keep old equipment around, it's death by paper cut, because when you have it, you fix it. And the more you do that, then the higher your repair costs go. And the only way this is going to make any sense is if we can significantly lower the amount of money we're spending on repair costs.
Any other questions? It was a good presentation. We'd like, can't wait till we see kind of the finished product. And we've got a good start. We're going to have to move on to the next one. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Ag Sustainability Council project, and be a question and answer with Robin. And we'll do about 10 minutes.
Connor, can you please promote Robin to the panelist group?
Can you hear me? I'm about to start my video.
we can hear you, Robin.
Okay, let's see. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you again today. Thanks for having us back on. I believe we also have some people from our dairy subcommittee of the Ag Sustainability Council on too. I couldn't see them when I was in attendee mode, but I'm pretty sure they're here as well. Ryan, thank you for inviting us back to talk about the Dairy Resiliency Project that we presented in December. We just wanted to make sure that this group had an opportunity to ask any questions about the project that we presented in December. I believe you all have a one-page brief that we sent last week, just to give you a brief overview of what we discussed in December. Basically, our Ag Sustainability Council is requesting funding for a study to be done on opportunities in the area of dairy and dairy processing to support local dairy farmers and grow dairy in our county. Has everybody had a chance to have a look at that brief? Or should I go through it?
What's committee want to do?
I've read it.
Okay,
Okay.
anybody got any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to ask any questions that you had, and then establish what the next steps would be to go forward on this. Larry, did you have a question?
No, Ron just walked in, so I'm,
Okay.
So Jerry, if I may for a minute here, I think the Ag Sustainability Committee, just as a brief overview, was established by the Board of Legislators about a year and a half ago when milk prices were quite depressed and things for our agricultural community were not going so well. And so the board created this ad hoc committee to study and look into ways that we could ensure the future of agriculture in Lewis County in the long run. And so that's what we've been doing. We've been meeting about monthly for quite some time. And this, what Robin presented in December is kind of what the recommendation was. And so I think they're just looking for kind of next steps from this committee. Are you guys interested in going forward with the proposal that the committee has come up with, or do you have other thoughts of ways that we could support the committee? So that's I think what we're looking for is just an idea of where does this group go next?
Committee, what are your thoughts? Anybody got any?
Robin, this is Ian. I know when we discussed it a few months ago, one of the things we suggested looking into was seeing what other counties are doing, either in New York or elsewhere, places where dairy is suffering. Have you been able to go down that road, or is that going to kind of be in the next step after we fund the feasibility study?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Ian. I think what we discovered was that, there are, I think the question that you'd asked when we spoke was, are there any other examples of public-private partnership, kind of from that perspective? And I think one of the questions that needs to be answered is, what kind of partnership is that? To what, how involved does the county get into a partnership? I mean, there are simple partnerships like just getting, tax breaks and different things like that, that can be a partnership in and of itself. There are also partnerships like the one that we highlighted last time, not in our counties here, not across New York or even in our country. There's a really interesting one over in Europe that's funded by the European Union that was done specifically for fostering the growth of rural dairy, while partnering with research institutions and private industry in order to develop technology that creates value-added products out of kind of the waste in milk. It's called Agrichem Way. This is kind of, it's a much larger thing than we'd be talking about, quite frankly. This is a huge scale, several $1 billion partnership. But that's, let's say, the other extreme, where, a public-private partnership is really kind of how you define it. We also just saw down south near Cuba, I believe it's south, Cuba, New York. In that area, Great Lakes Cheese has just announced a partnership with the IDA, the statewide IDA, for an immense investment in new cheese production facilities. You can see that as well. That's a new facility that's going to be, I think the main partnership there again is through the IDA, through financial incentives and tax incentives and things like that. And I think that what we would want to do is say, okay, not let that structure of what kind of partnership define us from the beginning, but as you mentioned, develop a concept for public-private partnership as we go along, as we I mean, the first stage is basically to identify what's the opportunity and what will we be looking at in terms of doing. And then I think it will become a lot clearer what kind of partnership is needed or wanted, but certainly it would be, you know, as you know, my very initial thoughts are it would have to involve a deeper partnership with the county, but also with research and private institutions in order to push this forward. The basic work of identifying the opportunity, though, based on market information that we put together, would be really critical in informing that.
Ian, I'm not sure of any, I don't think there's any counties that I'm aware of that own, you know, are in the business of owning any dairy assets. So I'm not sure. I don't know. Greg, do you know of any? You're more familiar.
No.
And I think that what we have to say here is, sorry, Greg, if I can just interject before you answer, I think we have to say, you know, Lewis County has been ahead of the curve on a lot of things, including solar and other areas. And I think that this is probably an area where we can be ahead of the curve and kind of out of the box, you know, ahead of other counties in this area as well.
Well, and I was just going to say, I'm not sure if the end goal here is to necessarily have the county government owning a dairy asset.
Right.
You know, there's maybe ways that we can subsidize and support in a way that is, you know, is positive for the community and sustains our agriculture in the future. But I don't think, I don't know. I guess we got to have the study first, but in my mind, the outcome that I was thinking was not really that the county would be in the business of owning and operating any, you know, thing like that.
Sorry, Greg.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I don't think the county can afford to own something like that.
Right.
Is there any other questions from the committee, Lisa or Dick or?
No, I think the study is a great idea.
Ron?
So is that something you guys are, you know, as a board would want to fund? Because we'd have to shift some money around. You know, we'd have to bring a resolution forward to do that. So.
And what was the total on that one? You remember, Ryan?
I thought it was around 67,000.
Yeah.
It's in two phases. We have down to 77,000, and that's broken up into two phases there. So.
Okay, two phases. What's the total?
The total is 77,000. And then 77,000, I believe. I don't have it right. Yeah, I can tell you exactly. Hold on 2 seconds. Let me just get that.
Okay.
The first phase is about 50,000. Yeah, phase one is 59,000 and phase two is another 18,000. Phase one is basically the study and financial modeling, business plan, basically everything you'd need to do to say, are we going to go for, is there something to go forward on, and here's what we would do specifically. And the second part was focused more on the utilization of renewable energy as part of that, and cold storage to a certain degree. Cold storage is part of that too, not broader cold storage for the entire county, but cold storage in the context of this specific project.
Yeah, I guess the only question I have, you know, like if we fund this and go there, I mean, hopefully it comes back with a lot of information and stuff that channels you can follow.
Yep.
But what happens if you find nothing? You're gonna need to do phase two too.
Right. I mean,
based on, stop at phase one.
Right. If we determine that there's not a really good opportunity that we would be, that the board would be willing to take a risk on, then we say there's no need to go forward with phase two. On the other hand, if there, you know, there are a couple of different directions that phase one could take us, and we may need to revise phase two as well. And this is definitely, we're not looking for a commitment on phase two necessarily at this point, but when it comes to the point where we say, yeah, we've got a really great opportunity here. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's what it's going to require, you know, in terms of a public-private partnership, you know, then we'd be going into phase two and saying, okay, what else do we need to research? So that will be, you know, renewable energy. We may feel like there might be something else we also need to research. I mean, maybe there's, you know, licensing opportunity with this AgriChem way that I think would be really interesting for our county. You know, but that's something that we really need to dig into the details during phase one. And I think we've got a few consultancies that would be really valuable and very good at, assessing opportunities like that and doing a lot of the legwork. Consultancies we feel would be, would do a really thorough job. I mean, the point of spending this much money is not just to have somebody go out and give us a story that we want to hear. We really want to do a thorough, proper job of analyzing the situation, understanding the market, seeing where opportunity would be for something like what we're talking about for our county, and then being able to develop the case to go forward with that. So we want to hire the best we can, so that when we say, yes, we're going to go for it, we know that's a really good opportunity that's been vetted carefully. Or on the converse, if we say there's nothing there for us to do, we know that that's, we can be confident that that's the right decision as well, and it is an investment. But our committee sees that as an investment in the future of dairy in our county, which, as we reviewed last time, it's pretty substantial and important. We're looking to help farmers get the most value out of their milk as we can, and also to kind of create a little bit of not risk management necessarily, but a buffer against the fluctuation of milk prices by focusing on what then do you do, not just as a dairy byproduct, but what can you do with the waste products to make sure that that's also something that we create value out of.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that's got any questions?
I have a couple comments, Jerry. I'm a little concerned about trying to coordinate or co-own a private enterprise in a public entity, be it, Lewis County involved in a project like this. I don't see how that would work out, trying to utilize taxpayer money to support a private business, so to speak. My hope would be that this study would put the emphasis on trying to find a industry that would add value to the milk that's produced within the county, but it ending up being a private standalone enterprise. And as Ryan points out, we might be able to subsidize something like that somehow, but I don't think the state comptroller would look favorably on an entity that was co-owned by private money and taxpayer money. So I would like to see the study, put the emphasis on looking for something that is viable and creates a value added product.
Yeah. You got everything, Larry, or you got a couple other questions? Anybody else?
So if I can could I just respond to that? Larry, I think that's absolutely on point. I agree completely. And I think that that's something that we'd have to really be looking at in terms of, what is the nature of a public-private partnership? Certainly, we're not thinking at our committee level that the county would be involved in owning a facility or anything like that. But I think that perhaps in this case, how the development of that public-private partnership would probably go in phases in terms of developing the case, kind of laying the groundwork and all that stuff. I can't say that I can define that right now, but for sure, the private part of that is going to have to be huge. And I think, I think that that's going to be part of exploring the opportunities going forward as well. So yeah, I think we're on the same page in terms of that.
I think some of the basics of this were done years and years ago. They did a study along this same line, and what ended up at I think around 30 private farms within Lewis County pooled their money, and they end up buying Mercer's, which takes milk and makes it into ice cream. So some of the basics I think have been done, and might save some time by trying to utilize that. Although having said that, it was probably 15, 16 years ago when it was done.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago. I kind of take it as get you the information you need by investing. to make those decisions, but on the same aspect, as far as once you have your answers, I think it needs to be developed privately with people investing in their own future, not the county. So
Right.
I'm kind of like with Larry. I'm in favor of getting you the answers, trying to get you the information that you need to make these decisions. But that's about where I have to stop.
Okay.
So anybody else got any other questions?
I just have,
Go ahead, Greg.
I mean, I'm on this ag sustainability committee, and I don't believe anybody on that committee had the thought that the county was going to fund a dairy facility at all. I think they're looking more for what can the county do as far as like tax credits, tax, in lieu of taxes, through the IDA, through those type of systems. Is more, this is going to have to be a private venture because they would have the money, a large company that might see the feasibility to, because we have so many not so many dairy farms, there's a lot less dairy farms, but at the price of milk currently, they probably could make a profit by producing products here. So, I mean, that's why I think that's what you're seeing with Empire Cheese or Cuba Cheese, whichever you want to call it, Great Lakes. They're going to do a $500 million plant. There's nothing to say that couldn't happen here in Lewis County because there's a lot of milk here in the north. So I think that's more what I think the committee was looking at is in lieu of taxes and the IDA functions and those type of things.
Yep. Thanks, Greg.
Okay. I guess the next thing is, I don't know if we got a resolution. I don't remember it. Do we want to move this forward to the next meeting? Recommend it? What do we want to do here?
Gary, if I can just suggest to help the committee a little bit, perhaps you ought to be thinking about whether or not the committee wants to consider the phase one proposal by Robin. Because clearly the phase two, we don't even know what that's going to look like or what that's going to entail. If the committee wants to consider whether or not it's going to support phase one and the cost for that, maybe that's going to help you narrow down what you're looking at.
Yeah, because I mean, I agree with you. Phase two, we're gonna have to look at phase one first, but I mean, do we want to move it forward for a resolution, or what's the committee want to do for further?
I would say move it forward.
I'm sorry, what?
I would say yes to move it forward.
Okay, Dick?
Jerry, I got a couple of comments I want to make. Maybe somebody can help fill in, but we spent, for me at least, an interesting meeting at the fire hall with quite a few of the farming interests in Lewis County a couple of years ago. And one thing that came out of that was, I think there's three classes of farmers. You've got the mega farm, you've got something in between, and then you got the family farm that just wants to manage it smartly and try to keep it within the family. Are we going to look for ways to help all three of those in some way, or how's this going to work?
Sure. Thank you for the question. This is intended to benefit farms of all sizes. I think that, our committee is made up of farms that are larger as well as farms that are smaller. We have members of Loudville producers on, as well as Oneida Lewis, which is, a much smaller co-op with typically smaller farms. We believe that there's a place for all size farms in Lewis County, and there should be a place for all farms in Lewis County. What we're trying to do is make sure that, number one, we can buffer all of our farms from the shocks of the milk price fluctuations, first of all, but also to help all farms get more value out of their milk that are local. And that's what we that's what we'll need to do in the opportunity analysis phase, to make sure that, that we're looking at things in a way that make sure that there are opportunities for small farms that sustain small farms just as they sustain larger farms. Does that mean that we can guarantee that no farms are going to go out? No, we can't guarantee that. But we are trying, this is basically an economic development type of project that helps make sure that we have that we can allow the farms that are here to thrive and grow, and perhaps even attract more farms to this area. It's an enormous part of our local economy and culture and social fabric. And it's certainly not the point to make sure that the big guys, get bigger and the small guys fall off. There's a place for all size farms here, and this project is certainly not intended to discriminate one against the other.
I think Dick, and the discussions, because I've been going to these meetings, the discussions have been about having a source for milk to go when, we're very dependent upon craft, and having a secondary source so that when the market fluctuates and when our supply fluctuates, we have some sort of balancing mechanism that is a secondary source for farmers locally. So that was kind of the genesis. Right.
Well, and it's also, I think we've used this example quite a bit, and it's kind of a generic example, but, in terms of what can you make from, there's always a spring flush, let's say, and there's some limited milk dumping every year, and all the farms, have that, and, that's a cost to the co-ops and it's a cost to the farms because the milk can't be taken in by the plants, but it gets dumped in the fields or, landfill or whatever. What could be done instead with this dumping, and is to take it and churn it and make butter, and make it into these big CMF blocks. I think Caitlin Smith knows what I'm talking about. I know she was at Kraft too. This is something that dairy processors use to replace cream in the summertime when cream is really expensive and harder to get. So this is just one of the simple ways. And again, I'm not sure that's what we would be looking at doing, but that's an example of something that we could do, to utilize milk and even purchase milk to make something that is sellable to other dairy processors. And that's why, when we talk about researching opportunities, we're talking about researching opportunities with other dairy processing plants across the state, or across maybe even a large, a little bit wider than just New York State. But to research what's being used, what's going to be used, what are some of the the dairy byproducts and waste products that they're looking at using in their production in the next into the medium to long term. So we really want to take a forward-looking approach to this and really identify opportunities on that basis, not just because it seems like butter would be a good thing to make on an industrial scale, but because we know that there's an opportunity for it. And in doing that, you support milk, you can support, you basically can support milk, the growth in milk production, and help to buffer farms of all sizes against the milk price fluctuations. Can you buffer them against the cost side? Not quite as much, but that's, that's going to be, that's up to the individual farm to make sure that, that they're efficient and able to, kind of, to operate. But that would help if we can get better prices for the byproducts for local farmers in that model.
Robin?
Not just the milk prices. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Robin, how did you do an RFP, or how did you arrive at the $59,000 number? Is it just, should we be creating a resolution to authorize up to 59,000 and do an RFP for proposals to undertake this study, or just how did you get to that number?
Yep. So what I did, I put together an RFP this past summer that we were hoping to present to the Dairy Promotion Order as part of a research grant that would be funded by the Dairy Promotion Order. That's basically, if you're familiar with like milk checks, basically they take out a certain amount of money. I think it's 15 cents a hundredweight New York State, the dairy promotion program. And so every year they field requests for research projects. I submitted our project to them for the dairy promotion order for that, but they decided. And so in terms of pricing, I did go through like a very brief scan of some recommended consultancies. And based on what we wanted to do, this was the price that we got for pricing out that first phase. And we ended up not being able to present that to the dairy promotion order because they felt that fell out of the scope of what they were doing with their dairy promotion monies. So it was a lot of legwork, but it was well worth it because as we went through the process as a group, as we went through the process of really kind of considering what to do and what this plan would look like, it helped us to refine our ideas and really kind of come down to what would we do in what kinds of phases, what are the objectives, and how much time and money money and effort is that going to actually cost?
So you're essentially saying that the farmers themselves were not willing to support this study?
I'm not saying that we didn't ask a large group of farmers if they would support the study. The people that we have talked to in our group and people who are in the industry absolutely support this. If you'd like, we can go out and ask farmers to support it as well. I don't see why they wouldn't. I imagine dairy farmers would be very interested in seeing something like this happen for our county.
Vic, you got more questions, or Larry, or?
Well, I'm encouraged with some of the discussion we had with the question. And I think for my benefit, as long as Greg stays on this committee and supports it, I'll take my cue from him because he knows a lot more about what's good for the farmers than I do. I used to fix their equipment a lot, but as far as the milk pricing and stuff, I leave it up to him, and I thank him for staying with this committee.
Yep.
Okay.
Greg was a very important acquisition for us, I have to say.
So
good.
You're in favor of moving it?
Yes, I think,
okay.
ag is one of our largest
Okay.
influencers
Ron,
in the county.
what's your thoughts?
You're on mute, Ron. Wrong button.
Looks like he went off completely.
Well, he hit the wrong button.
Oh.
He's
Well, wait
here.
for him to come back. Ron?
Yeah, I
There we
got
go.
it.
Okay.
Well, I didn't get it, but somebody did. No, I was just going to say the comment the lady just mentioned there, the idea of going out to the farmers initially and seeing what their opinion was as far as supporting the program, probably be a good place to start.
No, that's a good one. Do you have any other questions or comments?
Not right now.
Okay, Ian?
I'm where Dick is. If Greg feels okay with this, then I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Greg, got a question for you.
Absolutely.
It just seems to go better if, how do you say it, we're taking a venture and we have support from the people that may benefit from it. But I'm the same way too, so can we reach out and see if they're willing to participate? But I'm like the rest of them, I'm willing to move forward with it.
Oh, I think you'd have support from the local farms. Absolutely. You could reach out through the co-op, Louisville Producers Co-op. As far as putting dollars out there, well, that's probably what they'd be saying is they pay 15 cents into the New York State Promotion Board. Well, why can't we get the money from them? And there'll be some negative feedback there, but I'm sure there'd be some positive feedback also for, if you needed more funding, it wouldn't, as long as it wasn't a lot, because right now they're not looking too stable right now as far as milk price. It's going to start spiraling again downward a little bit. And the way these cooperatives are handling things, they've put some restraints on production. So, and anything you produce over a certain percentage, you're going to get less money for, basically.
Yeah.
You're going to be at spot market.
Well, that might be worth what's happening, that they might want to tip in a penny or two.
Jerry, can I just interject here too? There's comment from Joe here in the comment in the chat. And I would turn our attention toward that the Sustainability Council we have co-op members who represent the farmers on our board or on our council. And, just to make the point to the group that, they represent the dairy farmers in the county. And I think that we can be confident that this is something, they're working in the interest of the farmer too. And that's really important to note. Yeah, and again, Joe also makes the point that, the dairy marketing committee that we were going to present this for, they're not, the fact that they didn't consider that for dairy promotion funding didn't mean that they didn't think it was worthwhile. And I think their feedback was, yeah, it's something that's interesting. It's just not the scope of what we're funding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Robin, this is Mike Krieger, and I'm one of the several dairy farmers that are on the committee. And we strongly back this research, and we hope that you would consider to move forward.
Well, appreciate it. Is there any other questions?
Jerry, if I could just add one thing.
Yep.
With you, I would support this, but I think the resolution shouldn't give the finite number or the $59,000 number. If we're going to go out to do an RFP on this thing, I think we should find out. I don't think we should give them what we're willing to pay for it. I think they should come up with a number, and we could do a resolution to approve up to 59,000, and hopefully it might come in a little less.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, so we're going to set it up roughly to 59,000 or less. And committee wants to move it forward for a resolution. Am I wrong?
Yeah, let's move it forward.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried. Thank you, Robin. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the entire board. Thank you very much for your input and your questions. They're very excellent questions. And we look forward to taking this forward. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next one, excuse me for rushing, we're running behind. Timothy Hunt, Matt O'Connor, and Kip Turk, 5 minutes each.
Yep, just give me a second here.
Okay.
Okay, I guess this is Matt. I guess I'll go ahead and go first. It's just an upgrade or update on our HVAC upgrade at the PSB. The projects we're doing right now, we're moving along pretty good with the design of the boilers. I just received today kind of a good spec sheet that I haven't been able to go over, completely go through yet. For the boilers, the air handling units are still being, developed as far as design goes. And so we're going to try to get the boilers moved forward first. Hopefully get those out to bid here in the next, month and a half or so, and have the boilers start to be replaced in the spring. And then while that's going on, then the air handlers will probably go out to bid for summer work and be able to get the project complete, realistically fall of 21. So We are going to go forward with condensing boilers. Right now, we have cast iron boilers, which are not as efficient for heating. Where the condensing boilers are high efficiency, getting into up into the 90% range. So hopefully, we'll be able to save some fuel cost as we move forward with these upgrades throughout all of our buildings, really. So we do have the plan that we have for the boilers. The first half of the boilers, or the plan does need to go through Commission of Corrections for their approval, which they're meeting, I believe this week. We've put forth a plan for them to basically be aware of what we're doing in their building. It won't have any effect on the any inmates or jail staff at this point in time. The air handler portion of the project will, however, affect the inmates and jail staff because we'll be working more inside the jail. For the boiler project, they can secure us in the boiler room without affecting anyone in the jail side. So the current estimate from the engineers and designers just for the boilers is about $290,000. So I do not have a cost or an estimate on the air handler side of it yet, but that's what we're looking for at the for the boiler replacement at this time. So the one thing that we're looking to do is I guess that moving forward through, the numerous buildings that we have coming up, potential new ones, upgrading other facilities as the, years go by. I'd like to hopefully try to standardize our heating systems. If we go to a certain boiler system, I'd like to keep it the same throughout the rest of our buildings, so we could we don't have to learn 5 different buildings or 5 different boilers in each different building that we have. They can be the same. So if we have to work on them, it's much easier to learn one set than it is multiple different brands and so on and so forth. So at that time, we're leaning towards I'm trying to get some specs comparisons for you guys to go through, probably for next committee meeting, maybe even possibly the board meeting that you can have for the comparison of several different boiler makes that we will be able to try to put forth and standardize. So we'll be hopefully going through that here in the near future. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions.
Dick Chartrand here. Jerry, can I ask a question of Matt?
Yeah, fire away.
Matt, being that we're using taxpayer money to fund the project, and I agree with what you said about standardizing 100%. I fought that for 25 years at the federal government level. But we need to have Joan make sure that we go about it in a way that we don't get backlash.
Yeah, we've been looking into that, Dick. There's actually what you can do is adopt a standardization policy that the board can adopt. And we'll obviously have to allow for competitive bidding within the make and model. But, we can have other suppliers bid against each other. But in terms of open competition, we'll limit that down through a policy. So Matt put that on my desk late last week, and Joan and I need to look at it. But I think that might be the way to go. Is we still want to have, we still have to get the best deal for the taxpayers, no doubt about that. So we have to bid it out, but we can also be very narrow about what we want to bid, so that we do have on staff an HVAC specialist that works for the county. Now, what's the point of having that person if he doesn't have the expertise to work on 10 different boilers? It'd be great to have it down to 2 or 3 that we could have him work on. So
yeah, the standardization also comes down to having parts on hand, looking at so we don't have parts for 10 different boilers. We have parts for one boiler that are consistent. We're looking at, parts of availability to, some of these makers are hard to find parts, but we want to make sure we're able to have them on hand if we need them, the trouble portions of them, I guess. Looking for, training. Different types of boilers offer training, which is actually free. So, those are the kind of things that we're looking at. It's not just, good. It's not a Ford or a Chevy competition. There's, I'm looking at the future of the boiler, the consistency of it and the parts reliability and the technical support to go along with that.
Anybody else got any questions for Matt? Okay, thank you, Matt. We appreciate it.
No problem.
Tim or Kip, whoever's up.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. We have the bid sent out for the new tipping floor, the new garbage room. The bid should be open tomorrow. The bid opening for the office should be March 17th, with the pre-bid meeting being March 3rd. We had a real good crowd of people up there to look at for the walkthrough of the site. There was like 9-10 people there, and they figured there's 13 or 14 people that are going to be putting bids in, is what I was last told. So that's where we stand with that right now.
Anybody got any questions for Kip?
Thanks for the update.
Welcome.
Appreciate it, Kip. Thank you.
Hey, Jerry.
Yeah.
Assuming we're going to open the bid documents tomorrow, that'll give the committee, so we can get out the low bid documents out to the committee right away. Do you guys feel comfortable then making a motion to go forward with and award the contract at the legislative meeting? Or do you want to bring the bid results back to committee and discuss first?
No, I mean, what's the committee feel? As long as all the requirements have been met, the collusion and all that other stuff, and, they've signed off on them, I don't see why we can't move them.
And Jerry, you'll have a recommendation from the engineer on that as well.
So what's the committee want to do?
I agree. They can go ahead with.
Okay, Dick?
Yeah, I think we can get to that.
Okay, Ian?
Yep, that sounds good to me too.
Okay, and Ron?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay, so we'll run it, we'll have a resolution for the meeting.
Yeah, typically it takes a couple days after the bid opening for the engineers to put together their formal letter of recommendation. But as soon as we have that, we'll send it off to you guys. Okay.
Yeah, and okay. Any other questions for Kip? Okay.
Ryan, when the engineer does that, we've had a couple of instances where the apparent low bidder at bid time came back and left something out. So if they could verify the validity of the bid and have the bidder certify or something, that'll help this process go.
Yep.
Yeah, that
Great.
sounds good too. Timothy Hunt, is he back or?
Yeah, I'm here with Kip. The fuel system is complete. We did a walkthrough 2 weeks ago. There's about 10 items left on the punch list, mostly documentation stuff for, third-party electrical inspection and proof of the pressurization reports, things like that. However, about a week ago, we did start having problems with the fueling system. The fuel is foaming for some reason, and it's causing the nozzle to kick off. They were here last week 3 separate times. I've got the engineers involved. I've got the vendor involved. And they thought they had solved it. They thought it was because of the cold weather and the nozzles were freezing. Today, they had problems again. It's not because of the cold weather today. So they're back here today right now trying to fix it. But we'll get to the bottom of that very quickly. But other than that, the project is complete.
Well, when that acts up, I mean, can you still frog around in fuel or are we shut down?
No, we're not shut down. We can get
Okay.
fuel. You know, when you go to the gas station and the nozzle clicks and it pops off when your tank is full, that's what's happening. As soon as it creates a little foam, it pops off. So if you take the thing back out, mess around a little bit, it'll snap back on and you can go back to fuel.
Okay.
It's just frustrating for the guys or whoever's fueling at the time that they're messing around out there in the cold trying to get the nozzle to work. But
Yeah. Any other questions for Tim, committee wise or anybody?
I've got a question for Ryan on this, Jerry. Have we paid them all up, or we still have some money out holding?
I don't think we've paid for substantial completion yet, but Eric might know. Yeah, I can get back to you, Greg. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we've cut their last payment or not. I'd have to look at that also.
I do not believe that we have.
Yeah.
Well, we should hold that until it's fixed.
Any
Tim?
other questions?
Yeah, Jerry, if I could ask Tim a question. I've got a diesel tractor that I'm using all the time and plowing with, and that thing's doing the same thing. If you shove the nozzle all the way down into the fill tube, it'll foam back up and trip it in a heartbeat.
Yep.
There's 3 gas stations in town that I use, and all 3 of them are the same way. So I'm wondering if something's different in the fuel maybe this year, because it didn't used to do that in years past.
What originally they thought it was the nozzles have changed. There's a sensor in the nozzle, and it's meant to prevent fumes from going into the environment, and it kicks it off quicker.
Right.
And it's very sensitive to position. So that's what they thought it was at first. So they went and got an old nozzle that didn't have that, and it's still doing it.
Okay.
So then they were really stumped. So they thought it was cold weather. They ordered a special cold weather nozzle, still doing it. So that's why they're here today. They thought they had it fixed, but I agree with you. It could be something in the fuel. We don't really know yet. But the engineers had a whole list of troubleshooting questions. They wanted, apparently, if there's air getting into the system, if the pump's picking up any air, it'll cause that foaming. So that's one of the things they're trying to troubleshoot right now.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions for Tim? Okay. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. I guess we're ready for dockets.
Thank you. The first docket is resolution authorizing agreements between Lewis County General Hospital Occupational Medicine and the Lewis County Highway Department, Solid Waste Department, Recreation, Forestry, and Parks Department, and Buildings and Grounds Department for the purpose of random employee drug and alcohol testing.
Is there any questions or discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution to transfer funds in the Buildings and Grounds account in the amount of $10,699 for the purchase of a lawnmower.
Is there any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution amending compensation plan of the County of Lewis with reference to the District Attorney Office to abolish 1 full-time keyboard specialist position, grade 9, and create 1 full-time administrative assistant position, grade 15.
Is there any questions or discussions?
Yeah, I have got.
Go ahead, Greg.
Oh, go ahead, Dick.
What's the cost difference in this proposal?
Caitlin,
The keyboard specialist, grade 9, is $14.72 up to $17. And the administrative assistant, grade 15, is $16.80 up to $19.69.
Okay, so is there a keyboard specialist going to lose their job?
No, so we had a keyboard specialist leave and we have not been able to backfill. So we are looking to increase the responsibilities as well as the pay with that. The last one left about 4 months ago. So we had put
Okay.
out a motion to backfill and have not been able to do so yet.
Okay, and the difference in money is is it in her budget someplace she's gonna find it, or we gotta kick it out of contingency, or what?
She's actually on as an attendee, so I will let her answer that for you. Leanne, can you unmute yourself? Oh, there you go.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Hello. Yo.
Hi, Leanne.
You're not used to seeing me with glasses. Either way, it's scary.
Big
Greg Colzer, I believe, had a question.
Okay.
Yeah, what I guess my question was similar to Dick's, is why are we going from a keyboard specialist to an administrative assistant with a 6th grade bump? And I just don't understand why that's happening. And because I know was another department tried that and it was turned down. And do you have this money in your budget, or are you coming back to us for more money?
I would believe that we would have the money in the budget. Mary left in November of 2020, and we have not been able to backfill that position. So we would have lost all that pay, which my guess would be approximately over $12,000 based upon her salary, because she was making, I believe, approximately, well, I hate to discuss salaries on an open
So
seminar.
she was at near the top of her range.
Yeah.
Her time and position. So the backfill would be a lower one, but we budget for that.
It won't
Yeah.
cost any more in this year's budget, but in the out years, it'll cost more because this new position will move through the grades eventually, so.
Okay, thanks, Ryan.
It's also a change from a 35-hour employee to a 40-hour employee.
Yes, my understanding is based upon the difference, it's about $4,600 from what one would have been from the other, and still with the loss of 4 months of salary, I believe we would still probably be ahead of the cost for this year's budget, if not part of what we would have towards that for next year, based upon the difference in the salary would still be only a difference of about $4,600, because the one employee would have been in a much higher category than an incoming person in this. But the main situation is the needs of this office. The title is much more in line with the administrative assistant. I printed off both job title categories, and the administrative assistant, every category, every bullet point fits into this job title. Whereas there's really anymore only about 3. Mary was always working out of her category and of her title, which is obviously not really what the union wishes or desires. Obviously, every job kind of works out of their job title program, because no job title is specific pursuant to any specific department. You can't. So each job title is a little different, but this one certainly is much more appropriate for the position. It allows for cross-training of the 2 jobs, the 2 support staff we have in our office. The confidential secretary position, and what would be hopefully the administrative assistant. It allows for cross-training of some of the job titles, which with both positions being currently empty because my confidential secretary is out for surgery, it would have allowed that person to have had some ability to fill in instead of right now us seeking help from outside, particularly for accounting and billing. So it allows for much more cross-training, which I think all departments, especially the small departments, need, so that when one person is gone, there is ability to have any remaining staff be able to do what needs to be done in the office.
Would the person who left stayed if she had gotten to the administrative assistant position?
No, she would actually.
I can answer that, Leanne.
Okay.
Okay, so right now the individual actually took a position with the hospital, so she's still contingent with us, meaning she does have rights back to the position. She will be notified if the position changes, and she will be able to come back if she chooses. She has 6 months from the time she left. That expires in April. So that person could very well come back if they want to. They're currently at the hospital at a higher level position there. So.
What's the difference between
Thank
a administrative assistant and a paralegal?
Caitlin would have to answer that, but I think fairly significant.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Is there any other questions? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay?
Carrie, please note my abstention.
Okay. Do it
Okay.
one more.
Oops, sorry, Jerry. My apologies. I just wanted to say thank you. And unless you need me for anything, I'm going to exit completely unless you need me.
No, we're good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Have a
Appreciate it.
good day.
Dick, I didn't hear everybody. You agreed?
Yeah, I must have got talked over, yeah.
Okay. Passed.
Resolution authorizing agreement between the New York State Department of Transportation and Lewis County for the right-of-way incidental phase of bridge replacement project known as County Road 43 over Moose Creek, and to appropriate $2,100 to cover the local share cost of participation.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried.
Resolution to appropriate funds in the highway accounts in the amount of $23,700 to reflect the approved Marchicelli program funds.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried.
Resolution to transfer funds in the county machinery accounts in the amount of $5,900 for the purchase of a 3.0 cubic yard sander.
Any questions or discussion?
Just
Yeah,
for
is this
high,
gonna be used for
so-
parking lots?
Dick, go ahead and then,
I say, is this gonna be used for the parking lots? It seems like quite a small sander, and is it replacing something?
Yes, this is part of what Tim was talking about earlier today. It's actually part of us getting rid of equipment. So currently we have, if you can believe it, a pickup truck that does only salt and a pickup truck that does only sand. And both of those spreaders are rust buckets that are constant maintenance issues. So one new spreader that will be able to do both, and we'll get rid of one whole pickup truck. So.
All right.
is there any other questions or discussions?
No, thanks, Ryan.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried.
Resolution authorizing agreement between the County of Lewis and CNS companies to provide professional, architectural, and engineering concept and design development services for the Lewis County 2022 Facilities Improvement Project commencing March 1st, 2021 at a cost of $114,460.
Is there any questions or discussions?
I had that.
Jerry, go ahead, Greg, go ahead.
I had the question about whether we have actually looked into other engineering firms to see if we could get a better price on engineering and design.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna ask for several firms myself. I thought we mentioned some even.
We did. The last CNS that they engineered and did the work for was the JCC. Look at where that brought us.
Any other questions?
I'll just
The
reflect,
answer,
Go
I'll just
ahead.
reflect that, I'm just curious as to why we're not getting numbers from other companies.
So I thought, I guess maybe I totally missed the memo here, but we had that presentation from CNS and asked them to put forward a proposal. I thought at that time we were kind of ready to go with them. We can get other proposals. That certainly, is no problem. It's just going to take time. It took CNS about a month to put this together. So that's, I guess that would be on staff for misinterpreting what the committee had asked for, I suppose. I thought we were ready to go with CNS. My apologies.
And it may be me too, because I thought I asked if we wanted any other. Nobody mentioned any other.
I did mention it, Jerry.
But that was way before.
I remember I remember the question being circulated. I don't know if it was a conversation or by email, and everyone was in agreement to move forward with CNS is the way I remembered it. And Greg, you did bring up a second firm, that being
Bartle
Judas.
yeah,
but the consensus was CNS, so that's the way I remember.
is Joan on the call?
Do what?
Is Joan on the call?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Joan, can we spend this kind of money without going out for more than one?
Yes, you can. This is for professional services.
But I thought that had a cap.
No,
Okay. Thank you.
I still think this is a bit high. So
Is there any other questions or discussions?
So would a month make a big difference if we went out and asked other firms for a price? I mean, it is the taxpayer dollars that we're spending.
Well, part of the discussion, Greg, was that BCNA was going to come back in and lowball the thing and put us into, that discussion once again. So.
Oh, we already knew that, but we haven't had that difficulty with Barton LaJudas. I think they've done a fine job of the waste treatment or waste management center. And the last time we worked with CNS, you saw where we ended up in JCC, didn't you? 2.8 mil.
If we put this out to RFP, we're going to lose this construction season.
Well, we'll either vote it down here or move it forward. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Opposed, nay?
Nay.
I think I'm still short one.
I believe it's legislator Chartrand.
I got 3-2 right now. 3 in favor, 2 against.
Who was the other person that was opposed? I have legislator Verkler opposed.
Yeah, and hell, I don't remember now. Ian.
The only other one is Dick.
Yeah, my problem's not with CNS. I've worked with them for years and they're a good company. And what happened with JCC is longer than I want to get into on this call. But I think there's several things we need to discuss. And one of them is, are we just going to go to one individual company for these things since Joan said we can? Or are we going to actually put them out? Because had we put this out a month ago, we'd be where we're going to want to be at. So I guess in the, trying to get into this bid session, I'll go along with this one, but I think we need to discuss the bigger issue, and that's some kind of normalcy to how we're gonna do these projects. We seem to pick somebody once, and then the next time we go out for bids, and then we might pick another one. So that's all I got. You know, we
Okay,
can put it
so-
forward to the full board, and you're gonna have 10 legislators voting on it, and then,
Yeah, it either goes down or moves forward.
yeah,
Okay. But let me count one more time. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
to put it forward to the 10 legislators.
Okay. And opposed? It was
Aye.
Lisa. Okay. So it moved forward to the legislators.
Okay, resolution authorizing additional payment and amended agreement between the County of Lewis and the Town of Watson to contribute an additional $1,500 towards the total $6,000 fee charged by Dank for their services in developing the town's comprehensive plan.
Questions or discussion?
With this additional 1,500, what's our total support?
I'm looking at.
Are these one of the towns that don't belong to the Tug Hill Commission?
Yeah, anything on the opposite side of the river is not in the Tug Hill.
Okay.
The total contribution is 3,600, Dick.
Okay, and this is for their water?
No, this is for their comprehensive plan. We put additional funds in the budget the last 2 years. It was actually Cassie's idea to, in our community development line item, to encourage towns to take on the strategic planning, comprehensive planning process. And one of the thoughts of us contributing is that it would encourage towns to do that. So this is kind of a result of that.
What's the comprehensive plan going to include then, just in broad terms?
It's going to include land use, like zoning, that type of stuff. A lot of our towns, I can't speak specifically for Watson, but some of our towns don't have any zoning. The towns that do haven't really had an update to their zoning probably since the 70s or 80s, some of them. So that's what this will be looking at.
Okay, thanks, Ryan.
I do recall that we funded, the town of Gregg did one, and I think there was another town that did one also, and I believe we gave them about $2,200. And since then, Dank has apparently raised the fee.
Okay, yeah, it sounds reasonable.
Is there any other questions or discussions? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Carried.
Resolution authorizing the filing of 2 separate consolidated funding applications, one for CDBG grant for small businesses, loans/grants in an amount not to exceed $200,000, and another CDBG community planning funding for a countywide housing needs assessment and market analysis in an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Resolution authorizing inclusion of certain agriculturally viable land into a certified agricultural district and negative declaration determination.
Any questions or discussions?
Greg, what's your thought on this?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried.
Resolution to set a virtual public hearing to be held on April 6, 2021 at 5 p.m. to solicit the views of County of Lewis citizens regarding a New York State CDBG housing application for 2020 funds in an amount not to exceed $1 million with Snowbelt Housing as the subrecipient.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution to set a virtual public hearing to be held on April 6, 2021 at 5 p.m. to solicit the view of County of Lewis citizens regarding the proposed Lewis County Agricultural and Farmland Protection Plan.
Any questions or discussions?
I'd like to make a comment for if Cassie was on, or if she's listening, that I appreciate her putting Arlie Rice's name as a memory of on this plan.
Any other questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Resolution to transfer funds in the sheriff's office accounts in the amount of $22,000 for the purchase of capital equipment approved in the 2021 capital budget.
Any questions or discussions? I got one. What's this 22 go for?
We're talking about, they wanted some computer equipment
Okay.
and office furniture, and I believe this does not include the snowmobile. So, oh,
Yeah,
there you
I
go.
think it's-
Dishwasher, office furniture, and computer
Yep.
equipment. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or discussions?
This is the one that's got those really expensive chairs in it.
That was last year's budget.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
I haven't seen them this year yet. I think they're done.
Well, you better not see them for another 5 years, because that's how long it's going to last.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Ron, okay. Carried.
Resolution to appropriate 2020 to 2021 state snowmobile trail program funds in the snowmobile trails account in the amount of $291,732.
What was it?
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution renewing intergovernmental agreement between Lewis County Solid Waste Department and the Oneida Herkimer Solid Waste Management Authority for processing and marketing recyclables for the period beginning January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2022 at the rate of $77.29 per ton for 2021 and increased by 2% beginning January 1st, 2022.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Yeah.
Opposed, nay.
Hey, Jerry, can I make a quick note on this?
Sure.
So last time we talked about recycling, we were excited about the Development Authority opening the new site in Harrisville, which was going to be a regional recycling transfer site for the 3 counties. They built the site for what was going to be Lewis and St. Lawrence, and then St. Lawrence County ended part of their contract with Casella Waste Management, instead deciding to bring all of their recycling to the transfer site in Harrisville. So rather than us drive our recycling north only to have Dank sort it and drive it again south, they're just having us bring it south for now while they figure out how to expand and handle all 3 counties at Harrisville. So basically St. Lawrence County crowded out our ability to go up there right away, but they're still working on finding the future for that site. In fact, their budget, Dank's new budget, I just talked to their executive director this morning. Their budget begins on April 1st. And in that new budget, they've set aside funds for a study, a real 3-county study about a MRF facility, which would separate recycling and then bundle it and prepare it for market. So still lots of hope for the Harrisville site. In the meantime, however, we're going to continue to bring our recycling down to Oneida Herkimer, which is why we're extending this contract for 2 years. So I just felt like we haven't talked about this and I wanted to give a brief update.
And they are paying us so much to go that direction too, aren't they, right now? Okay. Is there any other questions or discussions?
Hey, Ryan, can we send St. Lawrence County a bill?
Trust me, they're paying quite enough for recycling up there.
All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution establishing the Lewis County Board of Legislators as lead agency for the proposed Laval Transfer Station renovation/addition project and determines that the project will not have a significant adverse impact on the environment.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution authorizing contract between the County of Lewis and New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services. This is grant distribution number 11.
Questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Okay, I have some motions. The first one is motion to authorize Highway Superintendent Timothy Hunt to send out an RFP/bid for hot asphalt and bulk oil.
I'll make that a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Ron?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Carried.
Motion to award bids for sand, gravel, crushed stone, and concrete based on project location in accordance with the tabulation of all bids prepared by the highway superintendent and placed on file with the clerk of the board for the period April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022.
I'll make that a motion.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Motion to authorize Sheriff Michael Carpinelli to refill one full-time corrections officer position due to retirement and any associated backfills effective immediately.
I'll make that a motion.
Second.
Who was that now?
Dick.
Okay. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Motion to award the low bid for crushing of stone to Bartel Sand and Gravel in the amount of $4.75 per cubic yard for the period of April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022.
I'll make that a motion.
Beasel second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
That is the end of dockets and motions.
You didn't have another couple you were telling me about?
No, I added those in.
You add those in, okay. We're just a little bit ahead of schedule. Just wanted to run one thing by everybody. Committee and thought process. Seeing we're, doing these building projects and stuff like that, I think we ought to consider writing a letter to the owner of DMV and asking a purchase price on it if we can while we're doing these projects. And see if we can buy it so everybody has a home when we're done. So I guess I'd just like to ask, see what people's thoughts are.
Want to make it a motion?
No, Jerry, I'm gonna suggest, Lisa, that you recuse yourself on this.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, please note that I recuse myself.
And maybe you ought to, if there's gonna be discussion on it, perhaps you ought to step off, Lisa.
Leave the Zoom call?
Yeah,
Okay. I can,
if they're gonna have discussion.
okay. Are you guys going to discuss that?
It's open for people's thoughts.
Joe, should we go in executive session if it's for a business transaction?
We can,
An anticipated contract, I don't know.
or we can do it at the end. Is that better, Joan? Do it at the end of the meeting?
Why don't we do it at the end and then Lisa can,
Get back in and,
Yeah,
yeah, so we'll just move it to the end when we get ready to leave. And we have a motion, well, we have a motion to adjourn.
Jerry, this is Phil. Could I bring something up, please?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I know I'm not on the committee, but what I'd like to suggest is involves the committee. And I'd like to expand on something that Chairman Dahlhoff has said in the past. And probably he'll say I'm plagiarizing, but that's okay. But Larry has proposed that we dedicate money to the community development fund. And I totally agree with that. And recently we committed money for that bad building in Turin to do an environmental study on it, and which is definitely needed. And as well as a reuse study on the South Lewis School, the old South Lewis School. And that got me thinking with what Larry said about community development and those two projects. I believe that probably every district has some building that has issues with it and would need the same type of studies done. One of the other studies or both. So due to this COVID year, in some places we didn't spend money, or we got additional revenue that I think would allow us to put money into that community development fund. What I would suggest is committing money for each district, the 10 districts, of up to $25,000 for a study on a building that they might have. And this isn't something they'd have to do immediately. It could stay there for 2 or 3 years until there was a building. And then that would total $250. And then in addition to that, I would suggest that maybe we put in another $50,000 to hire grant writers after the results of these studies are made. So what I would like to suggest is we look at putting $300,000 in the community development fund, and I would leave it up. And this is my opinions I'm giving you, but I would definitely leave it up to the planning department to come back to us with how they might operate this and the best use for this money and that type of thing. So we could discuss it further maybe at your next committee meeting. Does that sound feasible, Jerry?
Yeah. What about the rest of the committee? What's your thoughts?
It certainly sounds interesting.
Phil, are you talking about a study that would be an environmental assessment?
I'm talking about a study that would be environmental assessment or future use, whatever the situation warranted. obviously the planning department would be the final authority to put one forward to us, you know, to make sure it's viable. Like in my district up here, we have a building. It would be a future use study that there's not an environmental situation, but it's sitting there vacant and it's right in the middle of town. So a future use study would be a good thing for that to make it desirable for someone to purchase, as just like the school in South Louis. So it would be to the best benefit of what the situation called for, John. That make any sense?
So if I can just give some background here, and Eric may want to chime in also. The community fund came out of these pilots it started with wind farms. And we were trying to carve out some of the money from the wind farm pilots to establish a community fund for towns that weren't actively participating in wind farm money. So in other words, even if you were a town that didn't have a wind farm, there would be a fund for you to access to do a infrastructure project in your town. And it was going to be a competitive basis where they would put it in an application, and it was the LCDC, which is Development Corporation, was going to be the entity that reviewed the applications and did the awards. So that's where the whole thing started from. It would be a wonderful thing for the county to put up money, to get something like that going. But I don't know if we should just limit it to buildings. I think if we were going to do it, it should be more open. It should be towns, and it should be, a more generic application if they want to redo a bridge and they're short on money, or if they want to put in a park, they would have some seed money to do that. And Eric may have some additional comments. I'm not sure, but that's where it started.
And I'm okay with that, Larry. I'm parroting what you had suggested earlier with the community development fund, and I'm not the expert, and like you just said, it could be each town would have a different type of thing, but I would like to spread the money equally. But I'm not the expert, and I have a lot of respect for the planning department to bring forward something to us that we could mull over and proceed with. And I know I'm putting Cassandra and catching her blind on this, but I doubt if she didn't not want to have some extra money in her community development fund. But I agree with you, Larry. Whatever the best use is, but I do think that we should be equal for each district, other than the grant writing money.
I agree with you. We have a very competent planning department, and they would do an excellent job at it. But the reason why we chose the LCDC was that they were, I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of, but non-collusive. They weren't the same party that, that gave the money and then turning around and administering it. So that's the reason why it was sort of like a nonpartisan, and the word I'm looking for escapes me, but that's how we got there.
I don't think that the planning department would be partisan at all.
I'm in agreement with you, Phil. I think that's a great idea. And I think that we should stick with our own employees. Our county and planning department is more than capable of handling this situation. And I think you're right. I think all the communities, however they put their application into the planning department for a project, and then Cassie will take care of it and bring it to
come to us for approval. you know?
Absolutely.
I guess the first question is that the direction everybody wants to head, planning? So if we get that, then I guess we ought to see if they can put something together and bring it back to us. Am I wrong, or?
No, I think you're going in the right direction, Jerry.
I mean,
Jerry, could I chime in?
Sure.
I think what you just said makes a lot of sense to me. I think this is a good point to let staff come back to you. Phil's got a good comment and request. Let staff come back to you with a proposal, a direction, and then you can think more about it. Just a couple other comments from me. You know, grants can be good things and grants can be bad things, but the EPA has a great grant program that allows you to inventory sites that need remediation. So that's something that it's a long process, but something that could be definitely looked into. And the planning department is probably familiar with those grants. And I think one other comment related to what Larry was saying, I think that I'm trying to think of a politically correct way to say this, but towns should really have some skin in the game to at least apply, at least come to you with, put some time and effort into it and ask you for something. Don't just go across the board and say, here's $25,000 for every town. Make them earn it a little bit. So that goes back to let the department come back to you with a proposal and think through something that they can give you to really consider.
Eric, I apologize if I led you astray. I didn't say, I was not wanting to give them 25 grand right off the reel. I agree with totally what you just said, that they need to have skin in the game if it's sweat equity, but they need to come to us and ask for, or come to the planning department and ask for before anything will happen.
Yeah, and it shows effort and time that they put into it, that they really think it's important, and who knows what projects they're going to bring. They may have a 2-month discussion down there at their meetings trying to decide which one of the two they want to apply for.
Good point.
So I guess, go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, Phil, this is Dick. I agree with what your concept is. My question is this the right committee, or should this be under finance and rules?
Well, it's kind of like both, because planning comes under general services, and
Yeah, I looked at that and I saw that, yeah.
so that's why I brought it up now. And, I would definitely have brought it up in finance as well. But
Sure, yep.
we're all here, so,
No, that's fine. I just wanted to raise that so we didn't have somebody feel that it should be someplace else.
Well, Phil, it's not necessarily the committee's decision. It's all 10 legislators.
Right.
I mean, regardless of where it heads up, it makes it out of committee. All it's just saying is going for a resolution for further discussion.
Yep.
But, we've been fortunate the way we're set up here that we get to have a lot of these discussions as it goes along. So I guess, my biggest thing is that where we want it to head the planning? And is the legislators in agreement with that?
Can I make
guess-
a comment too, Jerry? I'm sorry. Just one of the reasons that we've used the LCDC is because eventually, what I'm hoping is if we spend this kind of money, we're not just going to create, 10 different studies that sit on shelves. What we want is to do this environmental background work so that we can eventually acquire the property, clean it up, and turn it back onto the tax rolls, right? That's the ultimate policy goal of blight abatement. So the reason that you've got to get the LCDC involved, one way or another, whether it's early on or later on, you're going to need the LCDC eventually because they've got to acquire the property and do the abatement. The town government is not going to do it. And typically the county has not done it because even with an environmental survey, you don't know what you're going to get once you acquire that building. So what the LCDC typically does is they form an LLC or some type of liability shield that allows us to apply for grants through the LCDC without necessarily creating black hole for any one of the town or county governments. So eventually, this will end up in the hands, if we actually get to shovels in the ground, you're going to need this to be in the hands of the LCDC. So that, I think that might be one of the, and I agree, I love our planning department. I think they're phenomenal. They can certainly handle it. My only point is when you get to the construction phase, which, you know, hopefully that's what our goal should be, is to actually abate some of this blight. When you get to that phase, you're going to need to have the LCDC involved.
Well,
Well,
when we
that-
get to that
the
phase, we
individual
could
projects.
involve them, right? But I don't know if everything's a tear down either, Ryan. Like Larry said, maybe it's a part. Well, you know, that wouldn't involve the LCDC, you know? So to me, starting with the planning department is the logical thing to do. And like Greg said, let's do it in-house with our own people. And you know, this is again, Greg and I are agreeing on something, and this is scary.
And if they, how do you say it? I mean, maybe it's a trigger if they're going for rehabbing a property or cleaning it up. The IDA comes in automatically at that point for discussions, because they're gonna have to work together to make it happen.
I think we've got enough of a flavor of what you guys are looking for that we can pull together with the planning department and come back next month with a more fleshed out proposal. Is that kind of what you're looking for, Phil, Jerry?
Yeah, if that's what the majority of legislators want to do. Huh?
What does Cassandra think about all that? Are you on, Cassandra?
I just have one other thought, and this is probably directed towards Joan. The other problem is, I think the county can contract with a 501c3, and I don't care if it goes to the LCDC or not, but I think there's a legal question here of whether the county can contract with a 501c3 for economic development, and they can support that with funding. But I think there's a legal question about the county itself doling out money directly to fund a outside project. But
Yeah, we're gonna have, there is something in the statute about contracting with the 501c specifically for economic development. So if it's going to run through the town, I'll have to look at that a little bit further. We can certainly contract with the town for certain things, and then I don't know if the town can then enter into those agreements with a private person in their town to fund something that they're doing. So we'll examine all of that as well.
Okay.
I think we're expanding the scope of what I was initially proposing, but let's let the planning department do their thing and come back to us. Jerry, does that sound logical?
Yeah, that sounds good. Committee in favor of that?
Yes.
Yes.
Dick?
Yep, I just had to unmute myself.
Okay.
Jerry,
Thank you.
it's Kathy. I'm a little late to the game. I'll make it really quick, but I'll work with Ryan and Joan on putting something together for some possibilities, okay?
I appreciate it. So,
Jerry, we're eating into another committee. I'd make a motion that we adjourn whenever you're ready.
okay, we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Goodbye.
Boy, Jerry, you spent a lot of money today.
Yeah. And I'm only drinking clear liquid.
Hey, Andrea, whenever you're ready.
Okay,
I'll be right back.
we will start the Health and Human Services Committee.
meeting. I would like a motion, or I'll make a motion to approve the January 19th, 2021 Health and Human Services Committee minutes. And could I have a second?
Bill,
Were there any corrections to the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to have a presentation from Ashley and Ryan on the vaccine rollout.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm going to share my screen and give you guys the most up-to-date vaccine data in Lewis County. So if you can make me co-host real quick, Connor. Also, Cassandra, Jerry Kayer has texted me. He's willing to come in if you're ready. So am I co-host now? Yep, good. Okay, so let's take a look at where we are to date with vaccines. We have done 3,300 first doses in Lewis County, which is really wonderful. And surprisingly, our second dose total is at 3,376. So we've actually done more second doses than first doses at this point, which I'm not sure quite how that makes sense. So now that I say it out loud, but anyway, we've done 3,300 first doses. This data comes from the New York State immunization tracking system. So these are people that were vaccinated in New York State and are Lewis County residents. It doesn't count vaccines that we may have done for someone who works in Lewis County, like a teacher that works for South Lewis but lives in Oneida County. That wouldn't be reflected. You can see here that the Lewis County governmental entities continue to do the bulk of the vaccinations. Lewis County Public Health has done over 1,000 first doses. Lewis County Health System has done 723 first doses. And Health Direct Pharmacy is who we use for the residential healthcare facility at the nursing home. So they've done 142. But as you can see, over 50% of all vaccines have been done by our local governmental entities. Kinney Drugs Lowville has done almost 14%. They've done 447. And the rest of the Kinney Drugs across New York State have done a lot as well. So this is how it breaks down. A big uptick was Jefferson County Public Health. Last week they were at, I think maybe, let's see, they were at 15. They jumped up to 36 this week. So their operations getting up and running, and clearly, you know, at least a handful of our residents are jumping over to Watertown. But obviously that's a small amount compared to the ones that we're doing right here in house. If you look at the demographics by age, this is based on, again, same report that was produced this morning by Ashley. 53% of all vaccines in Lewis County have gone to those 65 and older. Again, this is just first doses. But you can see now that they've opened up, the state has opened up the categories for 65 plus. Look at how much more heavily weighted the elderly population is. If you go back and look 3 weeks, remember we were a little bit worried that that population was lagging behind a bit. Well, now it makes up, you know, obviously 53% of the total. And we're obviously getting those folks through more efficiently. So that's where we stand currently with vaccines. For this week's plan, I'll turn it over to Ashley, just so you guys understand how, you know, it's frustrating because the state gives us the vaccines. We only get our notification of how many vaccines we're going to get like Sunday afternoon. So it really is every week we're trying to put together a plan of, you know, who we're going to be able to reach, what the state is going to provide us, and where we're going to be for those sites. So anyway, just so you understand that it's the state is kind of forcing us to you know, kind of be on our toes on a weekly basis. So Ashley, go ahead.
Thanks, Ryan. Just to correct your second doses there, we've had 1,688 residents receive their second dose. So 2 weeks after dose 2, they're considered fully immunized. And an update as of last week that New York State Department of Health is following the CDC guidance in regard to individuals that are 2 weeks post-vaccine are no longer required to quarantine if they're exposed to COVID-19. So that is a step in the right direction. As of right now, that's only good for 90 days post their second vaccine, but I thought that's a bit of useful information for you guys to know. Our allocation for this week is looking like we're going to receive 200 doses. We have been informed that we could be seeing some shipping delays due to weather. So we don't plan our clinics or schedule those appointments until we have vaccine in hand. That's, mostly because we don't want to have to cancel appointments because we don't have vaccine. So once we receive the vaccine in hand, we will schedule, we have 100 vaccines for essential workers. The state gives us our allocation and tells us who we are supposed to vaccinate. The extra 100 is called supplemental vaccine. And this week it is specifically for OPWDD residents that attend day programs, as well as individuals with comorbidities. So once we have vaccine, we will be scheduling a clinic. A new way that we're hoping to get up and running here soon for individuals to get on our list for an appointment is through our website. So they'll be able to go on, they'll provide us their name, address, phone number, and how they qualify to receive the vaccine. And then we'll have a running list that we can go to every week as we receive vaccine in and schedule our clinics. We can reach out and pre-register people for those clinics. It provides a bit of comfort for them to know that they've done something and they're on a list and just waiting vaccine. The other piece to go along with the comorbidities is how we will verify that an individual has an underlying health condition that qualifies them to be vaccinated. So Lewis County, in addition to several other counties and even the New York State Department of Health vaccine sites, will be accepting an attestation signed by the individual receiving the vaccine that they're attesting that they have one of the qualifying underlying health conditions. So no doctor's note will be required for those individuals, just their attestation. And it's actually quite a few individuals when you look at the list that would be eligible to receive the vaccine. That is all I have for an update for vaccines. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question, Ashley.
Yes.
With the people who have an underlying condition, they can call you and pre-register for a vaccine. Is that you call your department?
Well, so we will have a call-in option. So what I said was there'll be a form online on our website where individuals, it's not live yet. This is something we're working on, knowing that individuals, want to know that their name is somewhere that they can expect, it might not be this week, might not be next week, but at some point they can expect a call that they will be able to receive the vaccine. So this is like a wait list that they can register for.
Okay.
Now, I understand that not everybody has internet access, so we would have a phone number. When we announce this, we'll have a phone number that individuals can call to also get put on that list.
When do you think you're going to announce this?
We're working on it right now, Greg. We've got Connor's team is working on the website aspect. And Ashley is dealing with some logistics with the state in terms of our supply for this week and some inclement weather. So we're hoping to have a full press release announcement maybe by the end of the day, maybe tomorrow, but we're close to having all that together. Just a note on calling. it's good that we'll have an option for people to call, but we really, really need to drive people towards the website. So, it's going to be a really simple form, like 4 or 5 questions. So rather than, if you know somebody who's a shut-in who doesn't have internet, the message needs to be, don't encourage that person to call. You encourage that person to call you. You go online and put their information in, because our phones have been ringing the Office for the Aging at Public Health just off the hook. And, we're still dealing with some people that have, COVID symptoms, and we have some very legitimate reasons that people need to contact public health. We can't have our phone lines constantly swamped. So part of the goal of this is that everyone in the community can help one another get registered online. So we understand a lot of people don't have internet, but hopefully everyone knows someone who has internet and can, call their son or their grandson and ask them to get, fill out the form online for them.
Actually,
Go ahead, Phil. No, go ahead, Phil.
Actually, without any HIPAA problems, that sheet that Ryan showed us said there was 3 people over 100 that got the shot. Were any of those people legislators?
Funny,
Just you, Phil.
I was thinking about you, Phil.
Thank you for the laugh.
Yeah.
I figured you needed that.
We did.
Andrea, I got a question for Ashley, if I can.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Ashley, in fact, I'm going to do what they do on television. I guess I got 2 questions, Ashley. First one is, I had a constituent call me last week, and I did what Ryan said not to do. I referred him to your office. Basically, when you opened up your sign-up sheet for your clinic, it started, I think, at 9 o'clock in the morning. This gentleman fits the plan of not having a computer or a smartphone or any of that stuff. He started calling, and then he kept hitting redial, and he finally got an answer at 9:25, according to his watch. And it said the clinic is booked out. The Moose decided to put some stuff on the mail, and they said that the clinic was closed out at 10:20, I think it was. So his question to me was, how come they didn't take his thing at 9:25? And I'm sure there's something, the phone, you look at how many are waiting or something, and when you reach the number that fills that list, it fills it. Is that sort of how it goes?
I can't speak to that specific scenario. Was somebody else
I could
chiming
speak to
in?
that if someone,
Okay.
if we wanted to go into the technical explanation of what happened last week. We had the phone line set up so that we would have people that were working remotely being able to receive calls initially to call this hotline. However, we received an unprecedented amount of calls at one given time, and it flooded our phone system, and everything had to be reset. Most likely what happened was in the middle of that reset, or as we were kicking things up again and changing the settings back to handle the calls in a different manner, an old automated voice message probably was playing for a couple minutes while things were switching over. That was basically from a previous week that said, the phone lines are booked at this point. Yep. So probably he caught right at the wrong moment and found and got that message while we were spinning things up, because we didn't get back up until about 10 a.m. or 10:10 maybe, when we were really receiving calls and getting people registered. So that would probably explain what happened to him in that moment. We do admit that we did have issues with the phone lines first thing in the morning. But
Connor, that's a great explanation, and I will pass it back to this gentleman. And I appreciate it. Now, if some of the other legislators get the same type of call, we have a better understanding of how we do it. My second question
going
for
forward, it wouldn't be that way though. It's set up completely differently going forward, so we shouldn't experience those
Sure.
issues.
Sounds great. Second question, Ashley, is a lot of us get a flu shot once a year. I haven't seen anything in the news too much, so I'm wondering, as public health community that you belong in, thinking about it, but I'm thinking we're trying to give all these COVID shots now. And when you look at the news, it says, well, we might have everybody by late summer. Are we going to require annual COVID shots? And if so, are we going to have enough shots starting next fall to give us the second set of shots?
That official guidance hasn't come out yet.
Is it being talked about?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
There's so studies done in regard to how long the immunity lasts. You know, is the vaccine going to be good enough against the new variants? So the studies are being done. They're being done at a national level, and obviously it's the CDC, the Advisory of Immunization Practices. They put together those recommendations, and the states follow along with what that will look like. And then in turn, you know, your local health departments will follow along.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ashley, very much. That's all I got for questions.
You're welcome.
Ashley, we authorized you to hire extra people to help with the COVID. Are those people hired, and are they helping?
So we currently have 9 per diem employees helping with case investigation, quarantining, and monitoring of individuals. We are also having them help, you know, with miscellaneous jobs in regard to the vaccine rollout. So yes, we have filled 9 of them, and we're keeping them actively engaged in order to be prepared if we were to see another spike in cases.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Thanks. Are there any other questions for Ashley? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on, we will go to Stephen with the Veterans Services.
I just promoted him to panelist, so he should be on in a second.
All right, thank you.
Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon. So I guess you can't see me. I don't know why. I should be on his video too. Does everybody have a copy of my annual report in front of them?
No, no,
No.
no.
Okay. Well, bear with me then. You were supposed to have a copy of this in front of you, whether hard copy or electronic.
Stephen, I've made you a co-host. I'm not sure if you're a desktop or a mobile device, but if you wanted to try to share your screen, and then everyone would be able to at least see it here.
All right, Connor, how do I do that?
At the bottom of the Zoom window, there should be a button there that says share. And then you can choose to share that program or your whole desktop screen. We are seeing your screen share at this point.
Okay, so everyone's seeing the report?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the 2020 annual report for Veterans Service Agency. And just kind of as a comparison to last year with COVID, actually I should say 2019, with COVID and everything going on last year. Did a little less work last year. However, as compared to as far as a total dollar amount of federal funds into the county, you can see what that was for 2020. Comparable to 2019, 2019 was about 706,000. So considering everything that was going on last year, it's not too far off from that number. during the COVID. As far as total number of veterans, family members, other agencies seen, as compared to 2019 annual report number was 1106. So about 260 off from that. So even through the COVID, it stayed, for me, it stayed pretty busy. And mostly due to some recently enacted laws with the VA that kind of changed some different policies and kept me busy for especially Vietnam Blue Water Navy veterans. You can see the breakdown there of disability compensation, education, VA life insurance claims, VA pension claims. You can see the totals there. 135 total VA healthcare enrollments for 2020. Average Medicaid. That is a non-cumulative dollar amount as far as Medicaid savings. That's just a total per quarter of $201,000. And then you can see the total number there of 628,566 is what the total was for 2020. Does anybody have any questions about any of the numbers before I go over the highlights?
I have a question for you, Steve, if I could. This is Larry. So I can't see the top line, but it says the annual total is 846. Is that number of open claims or number of veterans in Lewis County? What does that number stand?
Under the annual total, 846?
Yeah.
That's the total number of people that I saw in 2020.
So
whether by phone, most obviously because of COVID, most of my contacts were over the phone. And you can, if you scroll over under mode personal, I saw 113 people in my office, and that was mainly in January, February, before COVID really took off. And then you see 733, that's how many people that I dealt with, whether it be veterans, dependents, widows, other agencies. 733 were over the phone.
I guess my question is, if there's 848 people receiving compensation, that's only about $800 a person. Is that?
No, the annual total of 846, that's how many contacts I had in 2020. That's how many, that has nothing to do with how many people are receiving any benefits. That's just the total number of people that I had contact with in 2020, whether by phone or in person. So that's what that number represents.
So 59 people shared 628,000?
No, that number right there, as of right now, at the end of 2020, I still had 59 open cases waiting on a decision from the VA.
Okay. I'm just curious. Of course, a lot of this money is medical treatment, right? So my question is,
the majority of the money is through VA disability compensation.
Okay, so it's money they can actually spend then.
It is, yes, it is money that they are absolutely spending in the community.
Discretionary, I guess is the word I was looking for. So is there any way of interpreting what the average individual gets or not?
No, that varies from, it basically varies from, as far as disability compensation, it can vary from $247, which is equal to 10% service-connected disability, all the way to 100%, a veteran who is 100% fully, totally, permanently disabled, up to $3,000. And then for any of those veterans coming back with the loss of a limb or the loss of use of a limb, that can go to a chart that is higher than that. It can actually go all the way up to $8,000 a month. So the VA disability compensation chart basically goes from 10% all the way to 100%. And then beyond that, for veterans that are seriously disabled with amputations or loss of use of a limb, you go off the charts, and it could be, like I said, as high as $8,000 per month that a veteran gets in disability compensation. So,
So how many people, how many individuals actually participate in this $600,000 figure? Roughly.
couldn't tell you. I'd have to
okay
to look at that and go back through my individual quarterly reports, and I can give you a number as far as how many veterans total throughout the year contributed to that total number. I can tell you right now, approximately 25 to 30.
That's good enough. Thank you.
And normally it would be more than that, but because of the passing of not under the highlights there, number one, that had a big impact on the veteran community when they enacted the Blue Water Navy Veterans Act. I had a lot of veterans come back to me to put claims in that had been recently or previously denied because they didn't qualify as a Vietnam veteran. Now they do. So there were a few veterans throughout last year that when the VA adjudicated their disability claim, they had huge settlements with the VA, like over $100,000 each. So I can tell you right now, there was about 3 people that had over $100,000 settlement with the VA, simply because they approved their claim after being previously denied. So they had to go back and retroactively award them from the initial date of claim. So it was pretty lucrative for 3 of the veterans that I know of, but it was all due to that highlight number 1.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the numbers? Okay. So like I was saying, the highlight number one there, just bottom line is, for years and years and years, the Vietnam veterans that the VA recognized as having been exposed to Agent Orange that was used were veterans that were boots on the ground. Veterans that mainly served in the Navy and that sat in coastal waters. They were not considered the same as veterans that were on the ground in Vietnam or in the inland waterways. So these Blue Water Navy veterans were not eligible for any benefits. And that all changed at the beginning of 2020. And that's one of the things that's kept me pretty busy this year is going back and doing claims for all those veterans that were previously denied that are now eligible. And all it means is that Navy veterans that sat in the coastal waterways up to 12 nautical miles on cruisers, on gunships and whatnot, they are now eligible for VA benefits the same way that a veteran that was boots on the ground is eligible, in terms of the exposure to Agent Orange is presumed. It's been presumed for many years now. So if you were boots on the ground, it's presumed, the VA presumed you were exposed. Well, now the VA presumes that those Navy veterans on the ships up to 12 nautical miles out, it's presumed that they were exposed as well. The VA has a list of diseases, it's 20 diseases long, that are associated with the exposure to Agent Orange. So basically, if it's presumed you were exposed, later on in life, if you come down with one of those diseases, it's presumed that Agent Orange caused it. You have an automatic claim. And so what has changed now is that process is now Navy veterans are eligible for that, where they weren't in the past. So that's a huge law that was passed, and it incorporates now all those Navy veterans that couldn't get that in the past. Any questions on that? The next one, the Veterans Residential Care Choice Act, pretty big deal. One thing that I deal with the elderly veteran population is getting them into a nursing home or an assisted living facility or adult home. And basically all this one says, and the VA is actually still working on this one, is that an eligible veteran, the VA will pay for the eligible veteran to stay in a certified or licensed adult home or assisted living facility within the county, which greatly reduces the backlog of veterans that are trying to get into veteran state homes. So the VA is working with actually everybody in the country to try to open up these community adult homes and assisted living facilities for veterans to go into and to have the VA pay for it. So that when that does take place, that's absolutely going to be huge, because that is a problem right now. And one of the problems I deal with is trying to get the VA to pay for something for the veteran to stay, because assisted living facilities and adult homes are just super, super expensive. Any questions about that? And the last one there, the Veterans Hearing Benefits Act. Basically, as of today, that they're still working on this one as well. It hasn't fully passed the Senate Bill 2810. The VA is using a very antiquated system for giving a veteran service-connected disability for hearing loss, or tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears. Basically, the best way I can tell you is you have to practically be deaf for the VA to award even just 10% for hearing loss. And so what this does here is this is going to completely revamp how the VA looks at veterans with hearing loss or tinnitus, as far as how they're going to test for it. And they're actually going to they're trying to fight to make hearing loss and tinnitus a presumptive condition of just being in the military. Considering all the different occupational specialties in the military and the different noises we're exposed to, they're moving towards making hearing loss and making tinnitus presumptive of just flat out being in the military and having served in the military. So that's basically what that is. It makes that a lot easier, because a lot of veterans suffer from hearing loss, and it's not just for whatever their jobs were after the military later on in life. A lot of them came out of the military with it. It only got worse throughout their lives. So VA is taking a closer look at that and try to revamp that system and make it more conducive to veterans who have hearing loss or tinnitus. Those were probably the three biggest highlights of 2020. So are there any questions on those? If there are no questions, that is all I have.
Thank you, Steve, for giving us the update on the veterans.
You're welcome.
Steve, this is Phil. We have a lot of veterans up in our neck of the woods because of the proximity to Fort Drum, and a lot of them have retired here. And I just want to, on behalf of them, I want to thank you for what you do for them.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Okay, are we ready for dockets, Cassandra?
On mute, Cass. Cass, you're on mute.
I knew I was going to do that. The first one is a resolution amending compensation plan with reference to Lewis County General Hospital to create 2 full-time certified nursing assistant positions and 2 part-time food service helper positions, and to abolish 3 part-time certified nursing assistant positions and 1 full-time senior food service helper position.
Okay, any questions? Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Hey.
Any nays? Okay,
Resolution authorizing a memorandum of agreement with Transitional Living Services of Northern New York for the purpose of providing the services of psychiatric and/or psychological evaluations of individuals receiving services from DSS for a period from January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021 at a cost not to exceed $158 per assessment.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay,
Resolution approving amendment to 2020 resource allocation plan with New York State Office of Children and Family Services to accept additional $2,284 in youth development funds.
any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
Resolution to appoint Deanna Edick, Lewis County Director of Services, as the Youth Bureau Director, and Ramona Carpenter, Lewis County Senior Keyboard Specialist, as the Youth Bureau Assistant, and authorize stipends for same, effective and retroactive to March 1st, 2021.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Ryan, probably Ryan can answer this. Is this stipends the same as what Penny Mosier was receiving, or are
Yes.
they it is?
Yes, I believe Jenny is on or gonna be on maybe, if you want her to answer.
And then
have-
Penny,
we
Penny didn't have an assistant.
No, we didn't have an assistant before. So
So why-
we've always had the position. We never had it filled. So we're looking to spread out the responsibility a little bit and add Ramona Carpenter as a helper as well.
And the stipends?
Yeah, they're the same.
I'll double check it quick. I believe it's actually a little less this year.
It's 2,500 for the director and 2,000 for the assistant. The current director made 43,3573. So it is right in the same ballpark as the one person. You're right, Penny hasn't had an assistant in several years, but I'll remind you she was the assistant before she was the director. So there's a lot of history of having an assistant.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on the Youth Bureau as we move along there between the resource allocation plan and the director? That's a lot of changes with the Youth Bureau. Last year it was moved under to the organizational chart of DSS, and then, now Penny's retirement. So we're moving forward with reorganizing that.
Thank you, Jenny. Are there any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you.
And we do have a motion. It is motion to authorize Social Services Commissioner Jennifer Jones to refill one full-time senior account clerk position due to resignation effective immediately.
All in favor?
Oh, this is, we need a motion and then the second, please.
Oh, sorry. I'll make the motion. Can we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Lisa. And is there anything else, Cassandra, for this committee?
Nope, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Motion to adjourn,
Please,
so moved.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Do we want a 10-minute break before we move to finance and rules?
Yeah, I need coffee.
Okay. See you in 10.
Larry, you gonna stay on for just a second?
Yeah.
Okay, I got a couple of things going on here at the house. I've got to get off the Finance and Rules Committee. I've got water coming in one of my windows
Okay.
from a roof leak, so I'm not on that committee, so I'm gonna just leave this one now, and I want to let you know why.
Good luck, Dick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good
This
luck.
is the second time in 2 days. I'm getting a little sick of it.
Gosh,
Dick,
Should
you
we
want
call
us
the
to call-
fire department, Dick?
you want us
What's
to
that?
call you?
Should we call the fire department?
No,
Dick, do you want us to call you for the executive session
what time is that gonna be?
when finance and rules is finished? Probably an hour.
Yeah, use my cell phone and then I'll just come back on, okay?
Yep, that's okay, right, Connor?
Yeah, Dick, I'll text you.
Yeah, it'll
Okay,
be
thank
fine.
you. Yep.
Hey, Jerry, while we're waiting, let me ask you a question.
Fire away.
Have we ever gotten a report from the sheriff's department, like, maybe the occupants of the jail, how many they have and that type of thing, or how many disturbances they've responded to, or speeding tickets or whatever? Just kind of a recap, monthly recap of what they do.
There was a, yearly report. And it may be out, it's usually a little bit later than right at the first of the year. So
Okay.
I can check on that. We did get something from Jason and, a couple of them on boating and,
Right.
snowmobile and stuff, but I don't remember seeing one of exactly either that or I overlooked it. I still got here's a stack I gotta read or wanna read. And it's going down, but it takes a while to get it when you get it all right there in the first of the year.
Right. I was just curious. I couldn't remember if we got a report like that, of jail population and, all that type of thing. I couldn't remember.
It's, I can go back and I saved last year so I can look at that and see.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
We haven't, I don't know. We used to, I think we backed that down at budget time, where we did the sales and stuff, for people coming in from other places for rent. So I don't even think we had much of that this year.
Right.
Sleeting down here again.
Keep it down there.
I'm gonna have to go find a jacket. And thank you for bailing me out, Andrea.
Okay, you're welcome.
Anybody want some baby smiles?
You got your
Yeah.
helper.
Yeah, let's have them.
What's her name, Lisa?
Her name is Penelope. We call her Pip, P-I-P.
She is a cutie.
Yes.
I think we have everybody, right? Except for Ron, he had to be excused.
Okay, if we got everybody, call the meeting of the Finance and Rules Committee together. First thing I want to do, make a motion to approve the January 19th, 2021 committee minutes. Can I get a second?
I will.
Any questions or comments or corrections? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that's approved. Now we'll move on to presentations. Eric on budget transfers.
Yes, thank you very much, Tom. What I would like to do is walk you quickly through some of the background information I provided you. So I think that was sent to you by email late last week. And then a few highlights of the budget transfer policy, which is up as a docket item for approval today. And this goes back to last month. We just gave you some preliminary information at that point that we were looking at this policy and working to finalize this policy. So the background information I sent out to you, just a few highlights and notes on this. The first part of that is explaining the accounts that are in the policy, and something we think about and talk about a lot in most of our county departments. It's Munis lingo, really. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. It's New York State finance lingo for account numbers like point ones, which are personnel expenses, point twos, which are equipment, point fours, which are contractual expenses, etc. I did provide you also one page from the New York State Accounting Manual that explains those in a little bit more detail. So I wanted to just give you that type of information. Also noted in that background that we approve these budgets on the county budget on an annual basis, and really it's important for our departments and our department managers to be monitoring their line item budgets and following those to the best of their ability, but they're always estimates. So, you know, a $30,000 budget line, it could go over budget by a few $1,000s, it could be under budget. If they're monitoring them effectively, there's going to be times during any year where they might have to amend that. And that's where a policy like this gives them the flexibility to do so, not necessarily seeking a level of approval that might have to come to the Board of Legislators. Our current policy was adopted in 2017. We have, basically it is very simple. It shows that the department manager can transfer within their point four line items up to a dollar amount of $5,000. So it doesn't allow transfers above that amount without legislators' approval. And it also doesn't allow any transfers between the other types of accounts, point fours to point ones, point fours to point twos, etc. I provided some information on the order of magnitude of our budget. I thought that was important to think about. That $5,000 is 0.01% of our annual county budget of about $50 million. I think when you think about it, a $5,000 transfer is really a pretty minor activity within our the annual scope of our finances. So what were we trying to do with this? Really is to give a little bit more flexibility to our department managers and our budget officer in allowing for these types of transfers. Also to decrease some of the smaller modifications to our budget that the legislators need to look at and approve. And also definitely to provide a little bit more detail in that policy. As I noted right now, we really only cover that one type of situation, a transfer from a point four to a point four, a contractual to a contractual. So to provide a little bit more detail than just that one example. A couple notes I had on the bottom of that background page. One other thing that we see often coming through the legislators, coming as a resolution, is recognition of grants very, very regularly. Also, sometimes gifts or insurance recoveries. You might see resolutions occasionally for a $500 or $1,000 donation. Shop with a Cop is one example that come to you for a resolution to recognize that revenue. New York State Comptroller's Office guidance says that that's not required. It can come to you for a resolution to approve that gift, but it's not required. And I thought that was something, again, that we could cover in this policy to determine a dollar amount where it makes sense to have an unusual revenue like that come to your attention. A second page that was in that background is examples from other county budget transfer policies. I gathered probably at least 6 or 8 other policies to look at when we were working on this. I'm not going to go through those in detail, but I think what I would note there is as usual, everyone is across the board in what their policy says or how detailed it is or not detailed it is. We tried to, take some of the best things we saw and apply them to what we do. But also, again, just to highlight that there's no consistency, there's no set way of doing this from one county to another. That's just a little bit of what was provided in that background. I might ask if anyone had any questions at this juncture, and then I'm going to walk you through just a couple of highlights in the policy itself.
Hey, Eric, can I add one thing? Just
Sure thing.
In terms of big picture. So earlier today, we made a resolution to transfer $5,900 for the sander at the Highway Department, remember, in General Services Committee. So the way we have things set up now, because that requires a resolution of the board, department heads like Tim, Tim's actually the one that brought this to my attention. The way our system is set up is he's not going to be able to get this money into where it belongs until after our March 1st meeting. Now, by then, he's going to be forced to fix the sander that he has. So we're actually hamstringing our department heads by having such tight control sometimes. Now, I think it's good that the board has oversight, and we need to have that. But if it's forcing us into bad operational decisions because we can't be nimble enough with, as Eric points out, 0.01% of our budget, then that's something that we want to at least, talk about and think about. So that's kind of things like that are kind of why we got thinking about revisiting this policy to begin with.
I was going to use that example also, Ryan. I think that's a great example. We honestly have many of these throughout the course of a year that come to you for a resolution. I think it also, lends to the fact that we have good department managers that need to be keeping an eye on their budget. And then that's the first level of control. And then in the policies, the amended policy that we're showing it, then the next level becomes the budget officer. So you have 2 staff members that really are going to focus on this and make sure that they're making good decisions. And then it gets to a dollar level where it does come to the legislators for your approval. Other questions, comments on the background info? Okay, and I would note one other example from earlier today. There was a docket item again in General Services. It was for the transfers for the sheriff for capital items. I think it was $21,000 or $22,000. That's going to be touched on in this policy. That really is very procedural. You'd already approved it in the 2021 budget. So then we then go through a step to have you do another resolution to basically transfer it from our interfund transfers line into the sheriff's office. So very procedural thing that with the amended policy, you would not need to take that procedural step. So just a few highlights in the policy, which again, hopefully you've looked at in your packet. On page 1, under section A2, I think I've kind of mentioned this previously. It says department heads are expected and relied upon to accurately identify and plan their fiscal needs as part of their annual budget preparation process. So they're monitoring that, and that's something that they should be doing on a monthly basis. But as I mentioned earlier, there's always going to be variances. So a department, again, with a $10,000 budget line, if they happen to go over by a few $1,000s to have the flexibility to amend that budget line. I would point out on section B, it's B1A item 2. It says transfer amount between $5,000 and $10,000 requires approval of the county manager. So this is really kind of the key piece of the amending our current policy. As noted, the current policy really only deals with transfers of 0.4 to 0.4, and department managers have authority for that up to $5,000. This is the most common transfer we would do. So what we're requesting here is to give the department manager approval up to $5,000, which is currently, that is what we have, and then allow the county manager / budget officer approval authority between $5,000 and $10,000. And then above 10,000 becomes the legislator's approval. So we're asking for that $5,000 increase with the budget officer having that next level of approval. I would highlight under that same section, item 4, it says transfers of funds from 0.4 to 0.2, which is from the contractual expenses to equipment expenses, are allowed with up to $5,000 with the budget officer's approval, with the county manager's approval. That's something we don't allow now. I think this touches to that example, similar to the example that Ryan was just talking about with highway. They didn't have any funds budgeted for equipment that they could have used for the sander. They could have used money from one of their 0.4 accounts. So this has two pieces of that example. That expenditure was $5,900. Our policy says $5,000, but we don't currently allow somebody to transfer from the 0.4 to the 0.2. So this would give them that authorization to do so. There's some other details in this policy, again, which are just to clarify and provide more guidance than what we currently have. I would note under section B, item 2 touches on the example I mentioned a few minutes ago at the sheriff's office. If the funds are associated within the capital budget for that year, that they can be automatically transferred to the departmental capital line after adoption of the budget. Under item C, I did want to note, I think it's both number 1 and number 2. We don't currently allow transfers into or out of the 0.1s, the personnel cap costs. I think that is relatively unusual, but we wanted to define that again, that those situations always require board approval. The 0.1s, the personnel costs, are just something that's, I guess, much more intended to have board oversight. So we wanted to reaffirm that in this policy. Those are items that I would highlight there. I think we've internally with Joan, Ryan, I think Cassandra's looked at this. We've been through this policy quite a bit over the last 6 weeks, and hope that we're bringing something to you will be more effective for our departments and give us more guidance and more information to work with.
Okay.
This is Phil. I'm sorry, John.
Go ahead.
So with the sheriff and the $20,000, what would the process be on that? If you said it, I missed it.
Though all 3 of those items that were in that resolution were included, they had made those requests as part of their 2021 capital requests. Ryan puts together all of those capital requests and brings those forward through the board as part of the budget. So we have a 5-year capital plan. And though all 3 of those items are in the 2021 year of that 5-year capital plan. So once the budget's approved for 2021, what this policy would be saying is that they then have authorization to move ahead with that budgeted capital purchase. So in essence, if this policy is approved, that department would then be able to go ahead, make that internal request to Ryan. Okay, we budgeted for it. Can we now initiate the purchase process for that? We would make an accounting entry, just like we do after what we typically do today, you would pass a resolution and then we make an accounting entry. So we would just move ahead with the accounting entry after Ryan gives them authorization to go forward with their purchase.
Well, that was my question, because I didn't understand. It sounded like they could just go ahead and spend the money, but they can't without Ryan's approval. Is that accurate?
I believe that says that.
Yeah, no one can spend any money without budget officer approval. Basically what this is, it's a vestige of the way we do capital purchasing is totally bizarre. And it's a vestige of a time when we didn't have a capital plan. I mean, until, with all due respect to folks that have been around a long time and the folks that came before, I'm sure there's a lot of good work done, but we were not doing 5-year capital plans until the last 3 years. So what would happen was, and you guys probably remember, a department head would come to the board mid-year and say, well, the oven's broke, we need to get a new oven. And you guys would discuss it, and then you decide to take money from capital expenditure and put it in that department's line item to fix whatever needed to be fixed. So when we appropriate capital, even today, even though all that money's spoken for, we know exactly where it's going to go. We still appropriate it to the capital equipment line first, and then have the board transfer it from capital equipment to the departments. You've done dozens of resolutions this year already. You did one for enterprise, you did one for highway, now you did one for sheriff. They're just buying the same things that we already approved in the capital budget. It's just we approve the budget to put the money into capital equipment, and then we do a resolution again to move it from capital equipment to the department to give them permission to purchase, which made sense if you didn't have a formal adopted capital budget plan. But now that we have that, it's kind of an extra step that could be seen as unnecessary.
But you, Ryan, still have final approval. So for them to do that, it's not totally up to the sheriff or whomever it might be, just to grab that money.
Correct. Yeah, we still have to, and Eric has to, we still approve every purchase. Yeah. And Cassandra's and her team audit it. So.
Yes. And that, I mean, Phil, that section, again, it's section B, item 2 says that if it's included in the annual capital budget, then the department has to move forward with a request and approval from the budget officer, and then they must follow the purchasing policy. So there still is budget officer approval and following through our typical purchasing policy.
Thanks. I'm good.
Okay, any other questions for Eric?
Eric, I just note in number 2 that there's a typo there. The third line, it should say, and with a request from the department. So we'll make that correction.
Okay, and I also see the word automatically transferred, so maybe automatically is not proper. It still has to have budget officer approval. So a couple minor edits on that section. Thank you.
Remember
that. Anything else for Eric? If not, thank you very much, Eric.
You're welcome.
And we'll move on to number 2, the contract threshold discussion. Ryan.
So I just wanted to, I don't have quite an in-depth presentation like Eric did. I just wanted to get a temperature check. Another issue that continues to come to the table is right now, only the Board of Legislators by act of resolution can obligate the county for any amount. So even the smallest resolutions and contracts that we have become resolutions of the board. I mean, I went back last year and looked. You did a resolution last year for $114 for a fire extinguisher, check, a contract to check fire extinguishers. We do a contract for $2,000 with the Village of Lowville to check our, fire extinguisher, our fire alarms, and do like safety checks. And it really came to a head during the pandemic because there was a couple times when, I'll be honest with you, we just got contracts in front of Larry and had to have him sign it. Now, they weren't for big amounts, but we had to keep things moving and business moving. And I think big picture as a governance board, as I want you guys to have more time to spend on, the things that we need to talk about, like our building project and what we're going to do with DMV and things like that. And so I'm hoping to try to get, some smaller things off your plate. So the proposal would be, and this is just a temperature check, we'd have to go back and really create a real policy on it, but would be to give the chairman of the board authority to sign contracts up to $5,000. So that way we're just another step of getting rid of some of these smaller items that are taking up the board's time that they don't necessarily need to have time wasted on. $5,000 is a very minimal amount. You may even want to consider $10,000, but just kind of wanted to see where the board was with that, rather than having every small obligation become a resolution. So.
Ryan, my 2 cents is I think this is a great idea. And thank you, Eric and Ryan, for putting it together.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on something?
Yeah, I got
like
a comment. I think I don't have a problem with probably the 5,000, but I think we'll start. Why can't we just start there and go and see how that works before we jump to a larger amount?
I think even 5,000 is going to eliminate, 15, 20 resolutions, honestly.
Right.
Ticky-tack resolutions all the time. So.
Right.
And we could work it out too, probably, that at each meeting, there's just a summary of what transfers were done as
That's
well.
That was Joan's idea, or Cassandra and Joan were.
No, it was both of ours, but you're right, Ian, and what we talked about was that either Ryan, as the county manager, would keep a running list of all of those contracts and report to the board every month, or we could do it through the department heads as well. But we're going to talk about that a little bit further and try to work that out. So at least the board knows every month what the chairman has signed off on.
I was thinking with the list of claims, we could add some lines at the bottom for contracts that have been signed there.
Yeah, I think if we start off with, like Greg said, the 5,000 and work from there, and then possibly tie in the list of whatever and proceed as we see what happens.
I think, but just looking big picture, I think sometimes we are, I think we do a lot of resolutions. I think we put a lot of business in front of the board, and it's a lot of work for staff, and it's very confusing. We have a lot of things that go in front of the board. And I think, at least my personal opinion is that your time could be better spent on things that have true impacts to the county, like things like, Phil had his idea earlier today, more time to discuss that kind of stuff and less time on some of these more operational procedural things. So anyway, that's kind of the direction that I'd like to go. And this is another step in that direction. So I'll put together a policy for next month. We'll present it just like Eric did, with the details and everything. And if it's something the board feels comfortable with, we'll push it along. So.
Sounds good. Any other questions or comments for Ryan? Okay, come back next month with something and we'll go from there. Thank you. I guess we're ready to move on to dockets.
Okay. The first docket is resolution authorizing amendment to the fiber optic network service agreement between Development Authority of the North Country and Lewis County, which will increase the monthly cost for services from $930 to $1,250.
Any questions or discussion?
Tom, I would just say that this is a prime example of what we were just talking about.
Right.
Yep, $3,000 to $4,000 of annual impact, it looks like.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution to join with the New York State Association of Counties to formally oppose the enactment of the DOT right-of-way fees on fiber optic cable and supporting passage of New York State Bill 8858, Assembly Bill 10932, to repeal Section 24E of the Highway Law and Section 7 of the Transportation Corporation Law in relation to reducing the cost of expanding broadband access.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution to join with the New York State Association of Counties to call upon Governor Cuomo and our federal and state legislative delegations to work with the Federal Communications Commission, local leaders and officials to reevaluate FCC broadband availability maps to reflect the true need and to include service gaps in broadband service across upstate rural New York.
Can I make a note on that real quick, Tom?
Yep. Go ahead.
So New York, so you've probably heard the governor a couple times now talk about 98% broadband coverage in New York State. His maps and the maps that are released to the public include areas where the state has subsidized the use of satellite high-speed internet, like HughesNet. That, to us on the ground that live in these communities, we know that HughesNet is not the same as having a hard fiber line to your house. And so this is a resolution to call on the state to let's get some real, and by the way, Lewis County is going to have this already because we are doing our own study. But basically, let's have the state start being a little more realistic about broadband coverage. They can't just move the goalposts and say they're 98% covered. Places like Lewis County know that's not the case. And so in order to get real funding and really address this fundamental issue, we got to first understand the problem. And the state's kind of trying to fool people instead of giving the real information. So that's what this resolution is about.
No, you wouldn't say the governor's doing any false data.
Well, if you count their HughesNet subsidy that they have given people, they have covered 98%, but that's not quite the same.
Any other comments or discussion? And all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried.
Resolution adopting budget transfer policy for the County of Lewis.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Nay? Motion carried.
I do have one question. It's Jerry.
Okay.
Are we going to get, printouts or something that we know the transfers in this site happened to?
I would say yes. Ryan?
Eric, can you answer that?
Eric?
I might have to give that one a little thought, Jerry. Are you looking for budget transfers?
Well, if you're following the budget in our book here, if you don't have those transfers, you don't know what's where. And it's not a lot, but the line items would be changing with the transfers.
That's correct.
So if you're tracking it, it's nice to have a printout, what we've done.
Yeah.
Not that you care, but if you're trying to follow the budget and where we're at, you can't do it without knowing what happened.
One thing that I've been thinking, Jerry, for a while now, if I could jump in, Eric, I don't think we do enough budget time between budgets with the legislators. I think probably quarterly we should do a budget update with this committee anyway, and we don't really do that. So I think that what Jerry's saying is correct. We need to probably do more regular updates on the budget so you can see where line item stands, where departments are. The thing is, all of our departments are really good, so we don't, we rarely have budget spending problems. The ones we do have, you're aware of.
Well, and that's true. Also, if you want to follow it, you need that information to be able to follow.
Yeah.
And maybe every quarter might be a good thing to just bring everybody up to speed. And it doesn't, I can live either way, but it'd be nice to have it.
Yeah, I completely understand your question, Jerry. I think I'm not positive that Munis will spit out that report for us. I'm gonna think that it will. So let me look into that. I think if we can get Munis to spit out that report, it should be very easy to do. And whether it's monthly or quarterly, we can provide that for you. So
Appreciate it.
let me just look into that, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with it.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else on that? All right, let's move along.
Resolution to appropriate funds in various capital reserve accounts.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried.
Resolution authorizing agreement between the County of Lewis and Remedy Analytics to provide consultant services pertaining to the county's pharmaceutical provisions under its health plans as set forth in Remedy's proposal statement of work.
Any questions or comments?
Ryan, what would be our goal with this financially?
So we have a contract with Excelis for our pharmaceuticals, okay? Anyone who's covered in our health plan, retirees and hospital folks included, they when they get a prescription, they pay based on our contract with Excelis. Now, these contracts, as you can imagine, are very convoluted and very complicated, and an individual consumer, an individual employee is not going to check to see if their price was what Excelis promised it would be. And by the way, Excelis promised to, under our deal, we were supposed to get a certain number of generic drugs. And so if we have doctors prescribing name brands, then is Excelis doing their job and rejecting those purchases, or at least asking for justification of why we're getting name brand instead of generic? So the point of this contract is it's a company that it's a new company. And what they do is they go in and they audit all of our claims, our prescription claims from last year, and they match it up with our contract. And they're going to tell us if Excelis is getting the good end of the deal or if we're getting the good end of the deal, and if everyone is following the contract the way they should be. If you talk to GKG, our primary consultants for healthcare, they are going to say that they probably don't think that either side is following the contract the way it should be. So what this company does is it's going to audit what we have. And if there are savings to be had, they'll give it to us, of course, with Remedy Analytics taking a portion of the savings for themselves. But it's kind of a no-lose situation. We have no way to know if our employees and Excelis and the pharmacies they deal with are all playing by the rules in our contract. And so this is just a way to hold them accountable. And if there is savings to be had, we'll get some of it.
So there's no cost, just gain. Or potential
The only
gain.
cause, the only thing that we were worried about was giving access to this data to a company. And that was my biggest concern. And GKG and the folks that we've worked with on this, Excelis included, felt that there was no risk of any personal data. So it's all just matching prescriptions with the contract. So
We've done this before, haven't we?
I don't know if you haven't done it since I've been here, but you might have done it in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did. And one thing that came up, not knocking anybody, but a lot of it's what the doctors write.
Correct. Exactly. And if we, part of our deal with the employee union and our health insurance plan is that for certain prescriptions, you have to justify why name brand, why generic can't be used. And so in instances where that's not happening, our plan could be paying out more than what we're contractually obligated to pay.
Okay, any other questions? If not, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried.
Resolution amending compensation plan of the County of Lewis with reference to the District Attorney Office to abolish one full-time keyboard specialist position, grade 9, and create one full-time administrative assistant position, grade 15. This was brought forward from the General Services Committee.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed?
I'll abstain again, Cassandra.
Did we have anybody that said aye on that?
I'll lie it.
Aye.
I'm gonna try it.
Resolution carried.
Resolution to appoint Deanna Edick, Lewis County Director of Services, as the Youth Bureau Director, and Ramona Carpenter, Lewis County Senior Keyboard Specialist, as the Youth Bureau Assistant, and authorize stipends for same effective and retroactive to March 1st, 2021. This came forward from the Health and Human Services Committee.
Questions or comments? All in favor, aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I have two motions. The first one is a motion brought forward from the General Services Committee to authorize Sheriff Michael Carpinelli to refill one full-time corrections officer position due to retirement and any associated backfills effective immediately.
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried.
The last motion was brought forward from the Health and Human Services Committee to authorize Social Services Commissioner Jennifer Jones to refill a full-time senior account clerk position due to resignation effective immediately.
I'll make that a motion. The second,
Bill.
Bill. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Those are all of the dockets and motions that I have, Tom.
And I guess,
Could I just bring up one thing before you adjourn?
Yep.
I'm looking at a letter from Assembly Smullen. And there is a bill in the Assembly from our good friends in Manhattan, Englebright and Rosenthal, which expands the Adirondack Park Agency's authority to oversee and to implement conservation design requirements for subdivision of residential lots located in the Adirondack Park. He mentions it will have far-reaching influence on the communities within the Adirondack State Park. And I've looked through this thing, and I'd like Joan to put a resolution together opposing this bill that's in the Assembly at this point. I think it might be Senate also, but I'm not sure. So,
I would second that. I don't know how anybody down there knows anything about the Adirondack Park.
Exactly.
well, I'll ask Joan to take a look at that for us.
Yes, I did see it from one of my colleagues from, I think, Franklin County. So we've started discussing it. So I'm glad you have it, Larry.
Anything else? Do we want to adjourn and go into executive session, or?
Just one other thing, Tom. Legislator Hathaway contacted me and Eric and Candy earlier today to get an update on the tax foreclosure situation. There is a stay for tax lien foreclosures, and actually a recent bill that passed in December to stay those proceedings until May 1st of this year. We wouldn't be ready to go forward before May anyway with the tax auction. But under that new law, there is a requirement for the county to notify those who are delinquent that they have the right to submit a hardship declaration, which would be an automatic stay of the proceeding. So Eric's office and mine we've worked up the letter that's going to be sent out. Right now, we have about 49 properties that are still delinquent. Some of them are vacant land, some of them are residential. So we will have our committee meeting and go through those properties and get them the notice, and perhaps in a couple of months, we'll talk about how, what kind of auction we want to have when we had it, because we did have the online auction last year because of COVID, and Eric can tell you we did pretty well on our returns on that. So we might want to do that again, but we're a little early at this stage. Is that okay? Okay, Legislative Hathaway, is that okay for a report?
I just want to be sure I'm clear on this. Like last year, it had to be an abandoned property or vacant. Now this year, it doesn't have to be that, but they can apply for the hardship and it would be not sold. Is that true?
Actually, no, any residential property is still stayed. The only thing that can proceed are vacant land and abandoned properties, similar to what we did last year.
Oh, okay.
If they got that, John, Jerry, I just one question. If they got that hardship, I mean, does that mean we got to go through a court decision, or what's that do?
Only if we wanted to challenge their declaration of a hardship, which I don't think we would do.
Okay.
But I can assure you that I think our judge will probably want to know that we sent out the letter under that new law. And perhaps we want to know if we had any returns on somebody submitting a hardship.
Okay, thank you.
And tell me again, Joan, how many properties was it for? Did you say 49?
I think that's right, Eric, isn't it? Around
Yeah,
there?
I got an update on that today. Today is our last day for collection in this part of the cycle. The number continues to decrease. I'm not sure what's driving that, but we are actually at about 40 still unpaid. A number of those have bankruptcies or other technicalities, environmental issues that we wouldn't follow through with. And then, so of about 30 remaining, and of that 30, probably half of them are going to be residential. So as we move further down the road to an auction, the number of properties is going to be, looks like it's going to be very small this year.
Be just like last year then, really. We didn't have very many last year either.
Yeah, correct.
How'd the payment plan work out? Pretty good?
I haven't heard a lot of feedback on that. I think, you know, the towns, 2020 was the first year, and I think the towns definitely had some adjustment time to that. I haven't heard any reaction this year, but hopefully it's starting to become a little bit more normal.
Okay, thank you.
That was all, Tom. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else? Maybe we want to go into an executive session, or how do we want to?
Yeah, so the executive session would be to discuss potential negotiations of a contract.
Okay.
Before we, okay, sorry. You're gonna make a motion?
Motion to go into executive session to discuss contract.
So I should recuse myself? Is that what I'm
Yes.
understanding? Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Thank you very much, Lisa.